Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have 8 male INFPs and I'll let them introduce themselves. And so Matt, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Sure. I'm Matt. I'm in my late 30s from the New York City suburbs. I'm a technical writer for a living and I cook.
Awesome. And Samuel?
Yeah, I'm Samuel. I am the co-creator and now sole creator of MBTimes, the Myers-Briggs webcomic. And I run a YouTube channel and much else based around MBTimes. And I took culinary and I cook as well.
Excellent. Now I just want to go to an INFP cooking party. And Paul?
Yeah, you should.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul. I'm also an INFP based in Vancouver, Canada. Gosh, I'm a marketing coordinator for an engineering firm, which is as fun as it sounds. And they wouldn't watch this anyway. Yeah, I also cook, but not tonight. I have the night off. So my wife will do that.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Great
Cool.
Segue, right?
And Leon?
Hey everybody, I'm Leon. I run the channel Type Tips, and I do psychotherapy.
Yeah. And Leon's channel is freaking fantastic. Yeah, and he's super, super knowledgeable in type, and you should go check him out. He's just a really brilliant INFP. And Josh?
Hi, I'm Josh. I don't know if I'm in the wrong video because I'm an ENTJ. No, I could never.
Very clear by your tender demeanor. Yeah.
The first time I heard about typology, I typed myself as an ENTJ. And an INFP friend who's 7 years older than me said, "You're not an ENTJ." Yeah, I love to cook. It's been my most enduring hobby out of all the hobbies that I've had and lost, that I just kind of cycle through or whatever. In the market for some new ones, but I love to cook as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Josh makes some killer bread. And Christian?
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm from the LA area. I'm an INFP 4-wing 5. And as an INFP 4, I am unique among everyone in not liking to cook or knowing how to cook well. So I currently do research on the transatlantic world, African diaspora, and the Spanish Empire, and I will be applying to PhD programs in history next year, so hopefully to become a college professor.
Yeah, you go, future Dr. Christian. You got this. And Paul?
Yeah, my full name is Paddywhack Caddyshack III Esquire. You can just call me Paul. You laughing at my name? Wow, it's kind of rude. No, I live in the Toronto area where I work as a non-douchey personal trainer and life coach. My description is, my description is going to be down below.
Is there a link in your bio?
I'm not going to say like and subscribe. I'm not goddamn FD, okay? But I want your money, and I want to help you, so I get money. So give me that, please. Thank you.
Shameless.
No shame, no gain.
And Sean?
Sean, over at the YouTube channel INFPHD. Been creating content for like 2 years now. It's more of like targeting INFPs. It's not really super smart, informative stuff like Leon does, but just whatever inspires me that week, I just kind of make what I make. So, yeah, that's me.
That's a mood.
Yeah. Sean, I like how high quality your videos are, like
because they're in HD.
They're in HD, and they're done out of genuine.
Now I get the name.
I love the pure heartedness you put into them. It shows.
The video editing that came to be my creative outlet I found a few years back, so that's where I've kind of took it on for that. So video editing is my passion kind of thing right now.
What editing program do you use?
Like, Adobe Premiere and After Effects on.
Okay.
What
if it's an HD, that makes sense. If it's an HD, that makes sense. But like, what is the INFP thing about? I don't understand.
It's just targeting INFPs. What are you talking about, Paul? Are we gonna have a fight?
Yeah, Paul's just gonna.
You would win it in a heartbeat. So no.
Oh God.
No.
Go check out Leon's channel Type Tips and Sean's channel INFPHD. They have really great INFP videos. I mean, that are targeted towards INFPs too. So if you want to learn a little bit more about your type and support your INFP creators, Paul has live coaching, and you can check that out as well. And so Samuel, he has a comic web series where there are each of the 16 types in comic book form. And everyone else has a Twitter account, and Josh is here because he's nice.
I don't have Twitter.
So first topic, INFPs. What is your relationship with morality?
Okay, since everybody else is going into an awkward silence, I'll take this one.
Okay.
Morality plays a massive, morals and values play a massive point where even if it's not personally directed and not meant to be personal, it is always kind of taken personally to some level. And if it's something negative, there's always a gut reaction to defend your morals and your values, or at least my morals and values. So it does play a very, very large part in everything I do.
I think at this point, morals and values and I are casually dating, and I don't know where to go with that. So I'm in my late 30s. I feel like, at this point, I'm coming into my, tertiary and inferior functions. My moral code is pretty set, and it's pretty simple. Don't be a dick. And if you're a dick, try not to continue being a dick. Like, treat other people as you want to be treated. You're going to screw up. Just kind of understand that and move forward and, pick yourself up and try again. And I kind of feel like I've moved on a little bit. I get frustrated as all hell because the world just doesn't seem to see it that way. And so we've got people saying, "Oh, hey, why don't we do this like Jesus?" And I'm like, "Well, what about these other things that Jesus said?" And they're like, "No, not those. Just these two things that he said." So I struggle with that a bit, but I think that for me at this point, just try not to be a dick.
Yeah, agreed. I would say, like, my relationship with morals and values, it's it's very, very strong. I think since I was little, I've always had some sort of conception or idea of morality, or just at least values that I try to live by. And sometimes it gets, or a lot of times I should say, it probably gets, it's very self-directed. So I'm very hard on myself if I don't live up to my own values. And I feel, just the intense guilt I feel, like it's a visceral, it's a visceral feeling, like in my gut, like when I do something that is kind of against my morals. So that's just kind of just an illustration of like how intense it is for me. I can be very hard on myself, but I really try and to not impose my values on other people. But if I am in a grip ESTJ state, sometimes that can happen. So, but for the most part, it's very personalized and self-directed, self-imposed, and very, very strong, very, very strong. I cannot navigate my life without my personal value system. And while I respect that other people don't always think in those terms, it always surprises me that like people don't have their own value system. I don't, because I'm like, I can't live my life like that. And so I always find it surprising when other people don't, but I don't judge them for not having a value system. But it's just, yeah. So that's just kind of, it's the water I swim in.
Yeah. So personality hacker, they call FI, making the personal universal. So it starts off in this personal subjective place, but then it becomes this universal principle because you're able to take the personal and extrapolate the universal from that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I also read something similar in Lenore Thompson's book on types, that INFP or FI DOMs, because she does it by dominant functions, each chapter, try to, with their extroverted functions, extrovert their internal values onto the world sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, like all growing up, I've never been like a troublemaker. I never got in trouble. Like through the teenage years, I was like, I don't know, bullied a lot, and I was depressed heavily. But when it comes to troublemaking, I kind of see it as like, I don't know, people like doing that is kind of lobbying for attention, and my goal is to avoid attention at all costs.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, for me, I've always kind of been the goody two-shoe kind of good person. But as a growing up, like I'm about to turn 40 here in 2 months. Right now, my value system is pretty like solid, like Matt was saying. I think growing up, you kind of dabble, you kind of follow where everyone's going and kind of see certain things. But like for me, it's just like it's getting really, really solid and precise where I kind of really know what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And now it seems like, I don't know, I'm excited about the 40s, basically what I'm trying to say. But yeah. That probably made no sense. But anyway, go ahead.
No, that makes sense to me. Yeah, and
it made perfect sense.
Yeah, and I related to like everything you said: the bullying, the goody two shoes. Yeah, same.
I'd like to present a little bit of a contrast to that. Cristian and I were talking a bit about it earlier. I did get in trouble as a kid. I mean, I wasn't a rebel. I wasn't beating up kids in the schoolyard and then afterwards going for a smoke break in the back. I was kind of a good two shoes, but I was angry. Like some of the early memories I have when I was in kindergarten, I was 5 years old. I was a bit of a biter, and that came from when my 5-year-old mind saw what it believed to be injustice, like kids excluding other kids. I kind of jumped in like, not today, and got all up in their face a little bit. And that persisted even into my childhood years, because I would just feel that anger so viscerally, and it's still something I struggle with today. I ideally don't give off that impression that I am a bit of a hidden rage monster, that I got that Hulk syndrome. But even when I was in like the late years of elementary school, I kid you not, my parents would take me out to dinner if I didn't hit someone in school for 2 weeks. And I'm not talking like a brawl, just like a whack or somehow getting aggressive towards someone. I flipped over my desk once in school. Like, this is really before 6th grade. Then I met a social worker, and she started to kind of help me turn things around. And it kind of continued in that fashion. And then when I was about 20, or maybe I was actually, 19, 20, I was actually seeing a counselor at my university, just because, I thought it'd be nice to talk to someone with all these feelings, #FI problems. And she said something that really blew my mind. Because I didn't relate to a lot of the INFP stereotypes. In fact, I was convinced I was INFJ up until about like 6 months ago, because I didn't relate to the FI, the individualism. I was, and still have a tendency to be, when I'm not careful, a finger pointer, right? You shouldn't do this. It's not about my personal values. It's you're wrong. So I would have a sort of interpersonal aggression there. Again, one that I try to subdue. But the counselor said to me, instead of worrying all the time about what others aren't doing right, think about what you can do to make things better. And that really changed my perspective. Since I was a kid, morality was everything. Every emotion I felt had to do with morality. That anger that I had, what seemed to be immoral behavior, came out of a deep need for justice and morality. And I'm always questioning morality, kind of like Chidi from The Good Place, except instead of the stomach ache, I just kind of get shaky, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. That's always on my mind. But I'm not. I don't relate to the FI stereotype of the individualism of these are my values. You can do your values, because I have that mindset of I'm discovering these values in my FI world, and I kind of do want to push it out into the world. I've been having a hard time over the past few years trying to find a good balance, and I'm kind of striking one where I'm still under the belief that the moral beliefs I have, I want them to be universal. I'm kind of Kantian in that sense. Thank you for that headbang, Josh. But I'm trying to learn to, instead of, again, point figures, instead of criticize others for what I deem to be their lapses in morality, instead trying to take the responsibility to change that locus of control to direct it inwards and try to be the best person I can be, not for my own sake, but so I can be an agent in creating a more moral world moving forward. So it starts at the FI place, but I still very much see that TE need to change how things operate through that morality. Is that it?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That sounds like Shadow Fee a lot as well.
Oh, I could see. Yeah,
meaning FE. And I think because feeling is so high in our stack, and because we develop it so early, I think that we can dip from into
the fifth function,
not
FE,
healthy,
right?
but we can dip into shadow and not even notice.
And
you have to kind of like listen to yourself as you think, as you talk.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is coming from a place of stress. This isn't me at rest.
Yeah.
And I know I can't remember who was talking about this, but when I was like looking into shadow functions and all that, I learned that when INFPs are under a lot of stress, or when they're under certain things, or when they're not as healthy, aside from the grips and the loops that an INFP can fall into, they can also fall into their shadow functions, becoming a unhealthy version of an ENFJ. So you would appear to be like an ENFJ, albeit a very unhealthy one, despite actually being an INFP. You're just harnessing into that shadow energy, I suppose, and utilizing it in an extremely destructive manner.
This is very SI, like trying to trace exactly where it comes from.
Yes.
I feel like sometimes I would be more inclined to just kind of like hand wave all this and be like, yeah, like extroverted judging function comes up, you're more like a J.
This is so cool.
Funny.
Well, I really appreciate being able to share that with you guys and have you be able to not only, not pull back, but to understand it. That means a lot.
Yeah, INFP males supporting each other.
INFP for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to hear you all. So I like to understand your perspectives on things. So kind of like what Paul was saying about being able to absorb people's perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Kind of getting an understanding. So you could kind of, I think extrovert intuition could help with that. Extrovert feeling could help with that too, right? All that. But just absorbing it and just seeing like, people are coming from different places, that they have different kinds of understanding of things, but at the core, their values and their needs are the same in a way. But everyone's meeting them in very different kinds of ways, of course. So that's I think that's a great thing about the MBTI, is that you get to see how people are coming at things in different ways, and how do they meet their needs, probably like through their own functions. And I think that's like my value. My value is to strive to understand that and incorporate that, so that we could all be able to meet our needs. Of course, if of course that can't be done perfectly.
We try though, anyways.
Mm-hmm. That's said very well. And so I think Paul B, another thing that he was illustrating was like the visceral feeling FI gets when something steps on its values or steps on its morals, but he just deals with it his certain way, but it can express in multiple different ways.
Yeah, I think I'm very different.
Yeah.
I think I'm very different from you, Paul, but I feel like if I go back to my childhood, I remember a lot of things starting out that way, and then I like had to find different ways to deal with them, because I remember being very angry as a child, that thing, right? Even just chores. I would get into arguments with my mom when I was younger, about how things were not fair, about how it didn't make sense that if somebody did a poor job on this chore, that somebody who did that chore next would have to like work harder to do it, like all sorts of like unfairness sorts of things. But I feel like that was never listened to. And I feel like I dealt with it in a very like any type of way, where after many years I just kind of learned to somehow like eat it and be quiet, and then like there's like that sleep to yourself thing that I kind of relate to a little bit, is now that you the Enneagram type 1 alternative of like, no, stay angry. Like I think anger eventually quieted down. I found ways to get rid of it, sort of.
I think it's great to be able to process feelings. I know that INFPs could be very, very good at that, right? So with the processing of feelings, I think it kind of achieves a different kind of aim than thinking. Because thinking's very good at achieving aims in more obvious ways, I guess, because it's connecting A to B, right? And it has the benefit of being very clear, and a benefit of being very, very rational. But like with feelings, it's I guess the whole process is like it's very strange. It's very hard to define introvert feeling, but it gets to the core of things that in a very different way. That doesn't have that kind of clarity that TI has.
But at the same time, you can't make judgments without feelings, and specifically the type of FI feelings that we're talking about, right? So if you have a bunch of options on the table and they're all seemingly equal, if you don't have some kind of value set, whether it's saving money or optimizing for a given thing, you can't make a decision.
Right.
It can't be done, because the only way that we make decisions is based on our particular feelings about a certain thing. That could be choosing where to go on vacation, choosing what to have for lunch, choosing who to date, who to marry. If you can't, like, if you don't feel certain ways about people or marriages or lunch, you're gonna starve and your genetic code is done.
But like, what about those people who like look at things in a logical means of like, okay, I need to eat to sustain myself, but I don't really care one way or the other what it is that I eat, as long as it's food, and so I will just go and eat this thing. I mean,
they have to find some value to optimize against, and that value could be not something on the menu, but hey, I need to make this pain go away, or anxiety, or whatever it is, right? I have to make this decision paralysis go away. And so I'm gonna choose the first thing that comes to mind, because it's optimizing for getting out of paralysis.
Yeah. It's like when TI creates a system to evaluate things according to the dichotomy or the axis of true and false. Intuitive feeling almost does the same thing, I think, but it's good and bad.
Yes.
It's necessarily like it's qualitative, it's evaluative, and it uses those emotional responses to, like you said, like there's an evaluation. There's an evaluation as to its not just its character or like its quality, but its valence, whether it is good or bad. And then as we kind of get old and use our other functions, that process of FI becomes much more sophisticated. Right? We have the NE, we have the SI, we have the TE to further elaborate on those feelings of this is good, this is bad, and to further construct a more complex framework as we go. I'll shut up now.
When you guys do laundry, do you guys like put your clothes away right away, or do you guys live out of the dryer and put it on refresh cycle?
Right away.
You can't just ask a question like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
Hey,
God.
you can't.
man.
No,
Are we supposed to put them away?
it was in my comment section
Yeah.
lately, and I've been like cracking up because I'm like, yeah, I live out of my dryer like every week.
I have been a lifelong liver out of whatever vessel is whatever, the hamper, the laundry basket, a suitcase, anything. And
even the
just
dishwasher.
The laundry hamper.
Just recently, I have had such success in doing my laundry fully in one session, including
Yes.
folding. It's amazing.
Did it.
So same. I used to be that way, but the thing is, I have an ESTJ mom who would just get on me constantly. So I really had no choice in the matter. Otherwise, my shit would stay in the laundry or the dryer or the hamper or
Until
whatever.
you remember it.
Yeah.
I live with my family, and it's basically get your laundry out of the dryer. And I'm like,
yeah.
Well, you guys are all a bunch of cookers. So in terms of sensing, you really have an aspect of sensing down pretty pat. So it's also a survival form of sensing too. It's like
right.
You'll die from having dirty laundry.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they're totally different things for me. For me,
I feel
cooking
like
is
laundry
about
is
following
easy.
recipes.
Yeah. Well, no, I get okay.
SI.
So cooking for me isn't so much okay. So
You almost don't count.
Culinary school, but I also don't follow recipes to the T. I'll be like, what's the basics I need? Okay, toss the recipe, go do my own thing. Like I'll see the basic ingredients and whatever. I know how to do everything else. Like, oh, I need this thing. Okay, and then I add in something else, and then create a fusion or create something else. But like after a certain point, after the base ingredients are checked, I toss out the recipe and do my own thing.
Yeah. I guess this is like a question of, do you lean more on your NE or your SI? So I guess more NE preferring INFPs will just get the base of the recipe and then go creative with the NE, whereas the SI favoring INFPs will want to stick strictly to the recipe.
I feel
I
like
don't know if I paint with that broader brush, because if you bake, right?
Oh, you have to be.
You've got a formula.
No.
You've got X number of ingredients that have to be there, and then you can get creative.
Okay.
How do we go from morality to baking?
I know.
Only NE, guys.
My laundry
working up to it.
bad.
My INTP
Chaotic
sister
neutral.
is the baker.
Christian.
This is a life skills seminar.
It's like home ec, because we probably didn't pay attention during home ec.
Oh my God.
In home ec,
I never.
I replaced
Neither did I.
baking powder with baking soda and produced the worst blueberry muffins ever. But
my group made cookies, and we actually put in 4 times the salt.
Oh.
It was pungent.
But 20 plus years later, I make my own croissants, so it's fine.
Oh,
Nice. Look at you.
My sister is
Claire handling me.
a default baker in the house, an INTP, and the reason why she likes baking more than cooking is because baking is a science. It's got chemistry in it, and that intrigues her TI. And she's like, "Okay, how can I do this with whatever I'm baking so that it comes out how I want it? Oh, I failed in this case. Okay, let's try this other chemical reaction and see what happens." Like that's what it all is for her. That's why she likes baking. Meanwhile, cooking
Mom,
is a lot
what do you
more
want to cook?
freeform.
Right? What do you feel like cooking, Mom? I don't understand the question.
It was his sister.
Like, Mom, like, what do you want to bake? What does your heart tell you to bake? What? How are you going to do this? Oh, here's how. Yeah. We still have morality?
I have a lot of this like cooking baking distinction and how I really don't like it. And like everybody's like, this is gets repeated everywhere. Like, oh, like baking is a science. You gotta follow the recipes, otherwise things will go haywire. Cooking is like, oh, it's a lot more free form. I do not see this distinction. Like, I feel like they are a complete spectrum, and you can absolutely bake without a recipe. I am understanding based. I am like,
you can.
like 5 90%
But will it be good, though?
and
That's the
95%
question.
Go
like, work
cook
from
a batch of
guesses.
cookies right now and make them taste good without following a single recipe.
And
He
actually,
would do it.
totally
Don't
do
test
it.
him. He will
I
do it.
could totally, like, do you know how often I bake? I bake every week.
Wow.
Right, but you
Fight.
do want to
Probably
trust me,
Bake
right?
off.
I'll admit.
then you clearly follow the
That's what FI
ratios,
looks
or
like.
we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be like, no, I don't
Exactly.
bake. I've never baked before. Nobody bakes. I don't know anybody that bakes, because otherwise you wouldn't be like willing to say that you bake, because it wouldn't come out. The ratio has to be there. The leavening to the flour to the salt.
To the baking
Leave the
soda or
salt out
baking powder.
at your own risk.
The yeast.
This is a very like complicated discussion. Are you
Because
talking
it's
about
science.
like you're talking beginning more strict, but I think what we need to focus on is the end being more strict. It's that our standards for a baked good are different than our standards for a cooked good. And
No, that's
why
not true.
is that?
That's not
That
true.
is true. That is true because you're putting
Not even a little.
things in together at the beginning, and then you're
Somebody
sticking
cut
them
that
in the
reference.
oven. It's what
Josh
comes out at the-
is putting all
it's what
that
comes-
expert intuition into this.
Okay, see, okay, here's the thing. I could go into my fridge, grab some
boy.
ham, grab
Wow.
some eggs,
Alright,
grab
we're back to itinerary, Joyce.
Joyce is like,
grab
It only
a
matters
bunch of
whether you
ingredients,
judge at
throw
the end
them
whether
into
it
a
turns
pan,
out
create
good.
something good. I can't go into my fridge, grab a bunch of eggs, grab a bunch of flour, throw it
But
into
do you
a
see
pot,
what you've
expect
buried
it to
in
taste
that
good.
premise? Look
But
at what
guys,
you've buried in the
question three
premise is something good.
Joyce's
All right.
question 3 is bacon is science. So you're just skipping ahead.
wow.
Yeah,
We've-
science.
We really.
Let me
We
just
have-
say, I have a saying where I can't get my INFP friends who have different opinions together, or else they'll start fighting.
Yes.
So I'm always like, if my FI-Dom friends have dramatically different opinions, like one's a vegan and one is definitely not. Wait, like on the opposite end, I cannot have them together, or else they'll
yeah.
bite each other's head off. Like I have a Christian INFP friend and I have an atheist INFP friend. I'm like, if they meet, their
They'll go at each
opinions,
other.
their FI opinions are so strong that if
What
they'll
about-
like they'll go ksh, ksh. And then like right now with the baking and the cooking.
This is great. We have managed
Thing.
to out INFP ourselves. Bravo. This is great.
Like where we have such strong opinions on baking versus cooking that we will actually start an argument over it.
And here's the thing: is this so niche and esoteric? Like, I bet nobody cares at all. But it's like for us, it's the most important thing in the entire world. It's so great.
Well,
you
as
guys
for the
are
French,
my people.
Oh, right.
yeah, in France, they're watching right now. Yes. Oh, of course.
Do we do anything casually though? I think everything we do is like, it's 100 or nothing.
Oh, totally. There's no. My therapist is like, Christian, the world is not black and white. There's so much gray, and I'm like.
And then you're like, why?
Well, there is, but everything's on the line.
Yeah.
Depends on how much any you want to put into it.
Right.
It's like if you want to have the degree of any that Josh has towards cooking or baking.
Right.
I'll bring up something that I don't have very much NE for is music. I'm like super SI with music, and I go back to the same music again and again for some reason.
Same.
I feel so lame.
I maybe don't.
I'm one of those people when it comes to music is that I will search out different songs. Like, yes, I have the songs that I favorite or from my past, and I'm like, oh, I love this song. But then I also have like K-pop, J-pop, K-rock, J-rock, all these other music. Yeah, bring it. So yeah, I'm very knee in that aspect too. I will listen to music from other languages. I will listen to almost any music that I like that goes a wide variety of things, and if I know I won't like it, I don't listen to it. So
yeah, I like a wide variety of genres, but I tend to stick with the same songs in those genres.
I like how in the last conversation we were like, no, and this one's like, yeah.
Black and white.
Can I relate?
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I think like for me, like I'm classically trained, so I'm not I'm not a musician now, but like I studied for a while, and I've got the like niches that I like. I'm into classical, I'm into jazz, I'm into acapella, and I gravitate towards certain sounds, certain ideas, I just discovered some violinists with some Christmas music that, like, what I love is, like, show me a cover and show me everything that I didn't hear in the original. So perfect example of this is Sarah Bareilles' cover of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. She sucks out all of the Elton John-ness, the 70s-ness of that song, and strips it down to bare essentials and plays it on piano.
Sarah Bareilles,
It's
love her.
stunning. She's amazing.
I was listening to her this morning. Had a good cry.
I'm never not listening to her at this point.
Let's
Almost.
all dance on that, like that Brave video she made.
Huh?
That one video she made, Brave, where they're dancing.
Yeah. Wait, Matt, are you classically trained in what? In an instrument or singing?
Voice.
Same tenor.
Really?
Me too.
I used to sing in a choir. Toured Europe. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, me too, actually.
People wanted me to sing, and
who did you tour with?
Loyola Marymount University.
Got it.
Yeah, so we last year actually we toured Europe. It was really awesome, and sang with an orchestra. It was super cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This one time at band camp, or rather, this one time at choir practice.
At baking camp.
Baking. Sorry, Joyce. Do you have any more questions? I derail things.
I was going to ask.
What happens when you throw a bunch of INFPs or perceivers into one room with each other? Like, the question I have for Joyce, because I haven't seen all the streams and whatever that she's
Balls on you, my friend.
The main question I have for Joyce is, are we worse or better than the ENFPs?
No, she did an ENTP. No, she did an ENTP video also. So I think we're getting there.
Video recently.
You don't want to get into trouble.
And they answered like 2 questions, I think, or was it 1 question in like 2 hours?
Doesn't follow directions.
Does not follow directions well. Least likely to become a ballerina, which is actually what was written on my 12th report card for musical theater.
And you proved that
because, like, I was like in musical theater, but I would always be crashing into things, and so even though I could dance and do all these things, I would enter into states of obliviousness where I would like slam into things when there was no performances in. And so the musical theater teacher at the time was like watching this, and then on my report card, he's just like, least likely to become a ballerina.
Wow.
Which made me laugh because it's true and I liked it.
Quick, Joyce, go.
Yeah,
do it.
So, yeah, very true. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so to answer your question, Samuel, what happens, with my panels with people who have FI is so for the INTJs and the ISTJs, they'll have an FI rant about like a very specific topic that their FI is passionate about, but they'll do it like after the panel. Like they might get a little frosty during, but they're like, I gotta hold back for Joyce. That's what they think in their head, and then they go like when the live ends, they start to go mad, and then they like tell their opinion. With the INFP panel, what happens is you guys just ended up arguing with each other on the panel because the FI opinion is higher up, maybe.
But like, what about like with ENFPs or ENTPs in comparison?
Like with the NE and stuff.
Yeah, so basically it depends on the NE user, but sometimes like I notice they're very verbose. So I one time wanted this panel to be under 2 hours and they went for 4 hours, and I'm like, guys, we have to stop. I'm serious.
Like, you're just
cut
like
everybody off and the thing.
Hydrated and emaciated.
I feel like NE
can't go anymore.
They're just like the Energizer battery, or the Energizer bunny. They just keep going and going and going and going.
And then
so the panel shut off, and they started talking for 5 more hours after the panel.
Oh my god!
I love that. That is like
awesome.
That is like my favorite thing.
That sounds like a movie Andy Warhol would make.
No, it's fun when you get on those NE trains. Woo.
Yeah, I guess like my takeaway, what I was trying to like convey is like what I noticed about FI. So Personality Hacker has a model. It's called the firm model, and they say that the IPs have a fixation on being right. So when it's like a topic that they know a lot about, and they've exhausted every end of that topic, they'll be very passionate when engaging with someone about it. And it shows when you see two FI users with contrary sides opinions and then they clash. I only noticed this with FI. I've never had this happen with a TI panel before. Yeah.
We are
So
a
that's
very passionate bunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, especially about like the things that we like and like hold dear to us, or like, let me tell you about this. Like, no, let me tell you about why not. No, let me tell you about.
Right. There's a lot of, well, actually.
I do temper
It's all
that.
feelings.
I would feel remiss.
You're both wrong.
I would feel remiss if this video went out without me saying something to temper that, which is I think I was only comfortable being so argumentative because I knew it was just for fun. I think if I'd actually started caring about this, I would not have argued. If it were something I really cared about, like, I don't know, like religious stuff from my past, you know what I mean? Like stuff that's like I hold very strongly, or like, I don't know, like I would have been much quieter.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Oh, yeah. Also, sorry if I mischaracterized you, FI users. I didn't mean to do that.
No, you're totally correct. No, that's absolutely true.
That is, yes, very true.
I mean, we're still offended, but sure.
I was watching Leon's video today, and he said a really great phrase. He said that the FI users' growth path is they're naturally like very strong with their morality. So the growth path is sometimes like taking that strong morality and trying to become more like I don't want to misphrase you, Leon. So like
become more sketchy.
What
I mean is like just getting from FI to NE, right? Just going from extra intuition, meaning like I think Joyce was talking about was referring to in the video was talking about getting into place of amorality, not immorality, but amorality.
Right. A little more detached.
Or at least detachment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I can let this go. This is not a battle worth
picking.
I mean, this is not a hill we need to die on.
Right. Yeah, it's just like what my therapist said, but she didn't use the cognitive functions.
How dare she?
Shame on her.
She did a good job.
Shun the non-believer.
Shun.
We use our FI on non-believers, though.
Yeah.
Paul,
What did I do?
What is your opinion on everything that we've? I don't know anything you
never answered your relationship to morals and values.
Oh, I have them.
Nice.
He's the thing. That was great.
Yeah. No, sure. Yeah, if you want just a quick summary. Like I remember I used to be fairly. I mean, there's definitely a strong undercurrent of anger going on because I am a 9, and that's kind of our deal. But and definitely like in my I like cringe to think about it. Like my late teens, early 20s, like I was so self-righteous. Like I wasn't like waving signs or anything like that, but like, you know, I'd be with my friends and stuff, and they'd like say something like, you know, they'd like notice some girl like walking by, and they wouldn't catcall, not like that, but you know, they'd like comment on her and stuff. But, you know, I'd be like, you know, she's not a piece of meat. Da 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 da.
Yes.
You know, just like very finger wagging and stuff, and like I cringe to think about that. And then of course, like later on, I think the part I enjoyed, because I had morals, like I was very protective of animals, for example, especially animals that are not well loved in the first place, like Joyce and Paul know exactly, like insects. Yeah, I was always very protective, and I wouldn't like, you know, freak out on someone if they said something negative, but I was always like just in there immediately, like more of as an example, like if there was a spider like crawling through the restaurant where I was working, like I was in there quickly to scoop it up because I hated the idea that somebody would step on it.
Yeah.
You know, and like people would notice and they'd be like, oh, you know, there's that weird guy who's rescues spiders or something. But I think the part I enjoyed.
Save you.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the part I kind of enjoyed about my morality is discovering the nuances of it. Whereas like I discovered like, oh, I'm actually capable of doing things I didn't think I would. You know, I would assume I was I would be, morally opposed to. And like again, like the first when it comes to men-woman relations, I used to be so self-righteous and that kind of placard waving nice guy. And then I remember the first time I had a one-night stand, and I waited for her to fall asleep, and then I left. It was her house, it wasn't mine. I remember walking home distinctly, no, nothing, and walking home, it's like, wow, I'm an asshole. And then I was just wrestling with the duality, because part of me was horrified by the revelation, oh, what are you doing? You've compromised, everything you said you would. But at the same time, I loved that, oh wow, I have nuance to me. It's not like some, it's not black and white with me, so to speak. There are shades of gray. And I didn't do anything bad per se.
Right.
I was just willing to engage in asshole behavior from time to time.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. So there are, anyway, just to quickly summarize, there are definitely, morals. I still have the protective instinct towards, insects and arachnids, for example. Yeah. But I'm so much more tolerant, as long as there's an open venue for discussing, you believe something completely different, or, you think completely different. But let's talk about it. Let's share, as opposed to oh yeah, well, why? There's not, as long as there's no sense of being attacked or attacking someone, then I love that exploration.
I just want to say quickly, that's a very 9 thing as opposed to a 4 thing.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yes. Wow, I just want to understand you. Wow.
That's what I appreciate about 9s, though.
Yeah.
I love all of my 9s dearly. I wish I was more like that.
Yeah, wow, everything you just said and did is completely contrary to every fiber of my being. But wow.
And so I feel like this is a really good example of how FI, it starts in a subjective place, but it makes the personal universal in the sense that it's able to understand things down to the level of insects. Sometimes it's kind of empathizing for souls, empathizing for life, even if it's not you, because you understand your internal experience so well, you can just understand universally how other things are experiencing things, that they have a life of their own, that they have a story of their own. Yeah, and that you saved that spider. That's awesome. Paul.
Yes.
Paul, you make exceptions. You make exceptions.
I still remember that spider. She was a good spider. Yes. I mean, she's dead now, but she was a good spider.
Anyways, I guess on the subject of hobbies, now that we're moving on,
we're on that subject.
I'm sorry, did I talk too much?
No, you're good.
No, that was Paul. I mean, the other Paul.
No, handsome Paul. He's handsome Paul. I am lesser Paul, ugly Paul, or that dick.
So we can call you less Paul. Is what you're saying?
I'm handsome Paul.
And I'll get out my Gibson guitar to prove it.
Didn't we just go over how Paul means small?
Yeah. No.
Paul.
Oh yeah.
Paul mentioned that in his Paul video, or the one that Joyce did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That means Paul has to go back to Saul.
Yeah. 1/4.
Oh.
Nice.
Bible reference in case.
I got you.
Yeah. And so my next question for all of you is, how do you personalize things for other people if you do? Do you ever make personalized gifts, personalized birthday cards, personalized understandings of other people?
I can jump on that because
Joyce
knows this from personal experience. Frankly, the relationships I have with people, if there's someone really close to me, they're not very material either. And sometimes this whole gift exchange concept seems a little odd. Hey, I'll spend money that you could have spent on something that you want that you could have also bought. I bought you a toaster, which you could have gotten probably a little easier because you know what you like. But I love making things for people. For birthdays, I love making birthday cards. And one thing I've done in the past couple years, I do have to up my game, but it's a choose your own adventure. birthday cards. So like, first one I made was for my dad, and he looks a lot like a Robert Downey Jr. So the first option was the crude but true, and it was a picture of him and a picture of a little sperm, and I said, "This was you. This is now you. 55 years later. Happy birthday, and don't forget you were basically once a sea monkey." And different variations like that. I mean, they're always going to be kind of crude. I try not to speak much profanity daily, but there's a lot of it in there. I also really like writing songs. For my mom, I wrote her a song a few years ago. And I mean, it started off really sweet. I was playing guitar, my brother was playing a little drum. And it sounded like a nice ballad. And then it started to get into the chorus, and the line was, such a beautiful smile and a heart made of gold. But today that heart turned 57. Holy F, you're old. And then I played the chorus, and then the whole song was just like nice things, but also like making fun of her the whole time. And she was almost peeing herself. That's something I love to do is show someone how well you know them, what kind of humor they might enjoy, and you make it personal. You reference their life. And now I'm trying to also personalize the whole gift. So if someone really likes music, I'll write them a song. I have a friend who really likes stories. So I wrote her like a story, like an adventure story. And it was it was so dumb, it was so crude, it was so offensive, but she just loved it. That's something I've really enjoyed doing.
I feel like I have this in common with Paul, except a lot more docile. It's like I do personalized gifts. I write songs, or I do sketches with people.
Lovely.
And I have a father. When he was younger, he looked like Buddy Holly.
Cool.
I think that's some all INFPs can relate with that, right? They're like somewhat like they have a relative that looks exactly like a famous person.
Buddy Holly.
It's like a genetic something that passes down genetically.
Yeah, I'm the one who looks like a famous person, not the other people in my family.
Nice. I was just thinking yesterday that my dad looks a lot like Conan O'Brien.
Oh, interesting.
But he doesn't look that much like Conan O'Brien. I was just thinking about it yesterday.
Well, Josh, you do have some Conan O'Brien features.
Yeah, the red hair.
Yeah, I read.
Yeah.
But also the blue eyes and the angular face. It's not just the red head, guys. Don't be harassed, okay? It's also that's really cool. But then what a letdown. My dad looks like Conan O'Brien. Wow! Everyone screams, but not really. Oh,
not that much.
So what's the point of saying it?
So for me, with the gift giving and stuff like that, I'm not like a person who makes gifts, but I'm a very strategic, very good gift giver.
Strategery.
Strategery or whatever. I guess the only thing I really was really good at when I made stuff was back in the mixtape days. I'd make very good mixtapes for whoever. But nowadays, when it comes to gift giving, I take a lot of pride in really understanding the person, and I hold on to a lot of things that they might have thought about 2 years back or whatever. And I can strategically give that to them at the right time in their life or whatever, and it really hits them hard. I know that. So for me, I'm a good gift giver, but I don't really make stuff out of sticks and give people or anything.
And so my INFP friend, when it was my birthday, even with Paul, Paul made me a really personalized birthday card, the most personalized I've ever gotten. And before that, I also had an INFP friend when it was my birthday on Facebook. Everyone writes a generic
you have another INFP friend?
Joyce, was Paul's gift was it edgy?
Wait, what?
Was Paul's gift for you edgy in any way?
Was it crude?
Was it
edgy?
There was one that was just all crude words, but they were bleeped out. So that's okay, right? I love Jesus.
Yeah, crude poem indeed. And so wait, what are you implying, Leon?
You said you had another INFP friend who on Facebook, everyone else says generic things, and this person, I'm assuming, did something more personalized.
this is what happens when an IJ is knocked off of their train of thought 10,000 times by any. It's like, hey, wait, this.
It's okay. We have SI to recover.
We're not very good at it.
No.
And so, like, with my INFP friend, like, with his birthday message, it was different. It was like, it acknowledged my love of typology in a very, like, I know who you are type of way. And it made me think about how INFPs in general, like, they have this pride in understanding those closest to them, like what Sean was saying. And I notice it. It's like you have an idea of a person, their likes and dislikes, and you when you guys try to do something for someone, you know that. Because I wonder if it's because INFPs are so aware of their likes and dislikes with certain topics that they like to keep track of other people's likes and dislikes so they can be kind to those as well. I just noticed that with INFPs, there's a huge personalization aspect with a lot of them. I'm not saying it's all, but I noticed there's a definite trend. But
I think I strive for that, but I've not been very good about that so far in my life. I think that I have given a lot of gifts in my life so far that were things that I would like, and and then the person received them, and I think they were polite or whatever. And I think that maybe it's just part of being like I'm looking to my past where I was younger and younger the farther back I go, and I think being a young person with FI, at least, it's hard to get out of like, well, I would like this, so they should like it, or something like that. There were a lot of gifts that I gave because I would have liked them.
Yeah, I was a little bit different. I would, when I make friends, when I have friends, I pay very close attention to their likes, their dislikes, their personalities, what they're like. I pay close attention to my family's likes, dislikes, what they like, what they want. I'm always paying attention so that I'm always able to get them the right kind of present. So, like, for example, when I was working in the restaurant at an airport, there was a guy who liked to make a bunch of witty comments, and so I ended up getting him a shirt that said, "If you can't say anything nice, come sit next to me and we'll make fun of them together," because he was that kind of guy.
Nice.
So I would get. Then there was this one, the youth pastor who I was with at one point really liked the song "What Does the Fox Say?" So I got him a "What Does the Fox Say" shirt as a kind of an ironic thing because he would use it very ironically.
Yeah.
And so, and then depending on what they did for me would then amplify what I did for them. So, for example, one of my friends gave me his PS2 as a bit of a roundabout so that my family wouldn't have any objections to me getting a game system at the time. And so later on, when the Xbox 360 came out and I was working and had my own money, I got him an Xbox 360 and he was like absolutely stunned. So that's the kind of, like, I love giving gifts that I know people will like, and I will pay attention to what they will like before I give that gift, and it will be personalized to them as a person. So, like, with my sister getting a new computer, I couldn't just get her any generic keyboard. I had to get her a unique keyboard because I knew she liked unique things. So I ended up getting her kind of typewriter, retro-ish
mechanical
keyboard. Yeah, mechanical keyboard.
I've got one of those, yeah.
Yeah. So
nice.
I am very much into finding, like, personalizing gifts and finding what is personal to those people, and then I will give them a gift based on what I know about them.
Yeah.
I hate getting sucky gifts and then having to pretend to, like, fake smile. That's like the worst. It's like,
yeah.
That's like the worst part.
Agreed. I'm very much like Sam and Sean with the gift giving. I don't make gifts. I just don't have the patience for that. But I very much pay I very much pay attention, and that's just my way of connecting with people. Because ultimately, for me, it's about building a strong relationship with somebody, and that's how I do. One of the ways in which I do that. So So I'm always kind of, or I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times, like, I'm listening to very key things. Somebody says, "Oh, I really like this," or "Oh, like I wish I had that," or whatever the case is, and my SI like catalogs that and like, okay, I can use that as a gift later, or gift idea. So I'm very much paying attention, and it's always, you know, just like with everyone here, I'm sure it's always very particular to that person. And the one thing that I will personalize, that's, it's not really making, but is with my writing. So my cards are always very, so I'm a writer. So like the writing in my cards is, I always try to find cards that not only, they're usually like sentimental, but also have lots of space so I can write in them, you know, just a really nice message. So that's kind of like my opportunity to kind of, I guess, extrovert in a sort of introverted writing way my feelings about the other person and how much they mean to me. So that's one way in which I kind of like really personalize my gifts to people.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when we do that, or like when I do it, I always get annoyed when somebody's going out and they're like, "Oh, what do you want to eat?" or "What do you want to that?" Like, I know exactly what to get my dad, my sister, everybody, like what kind of food to get them all. I know what kind of food, whatever friends I have end up giving. And then, but I can't help but feel annoyed that whenever they're like, "Well, what do you want to eat? What do you like to eat?" I'm like, "You've known me for this long. How do you not know what my preferences are?"
Yes.
Especially when I've paid so much attention to what your preferences are.
Oh my God.
How do you keep ignoring and missing the things that I like?
Oh, I have a story. One time, used to be my best friend, he got me a Christmas gift. Was it Christmas or no, his birthday, and it was The Omen, the movie. And he knows I do not like any movies dealing with exorcisms or demons or anything like that. Like, and I am very explicit and emphatic about how I do not like those kinds of movies. And I was so upset that he got me that. I'm like, we're best friends, and I'm very vocal about how I don't like those kinds of movies, and you buy me The Omen? Like, what?
You ever notice how like strong SI users would be like, "I want you to have this experience whether you want to have it or not"?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I'm so guilty of that. Oh God. Especially with music. I'm like, you have to listen to the song. Shut up. Don't say anything.
First of all, if you tell me that, you'd be like, "Oh, you have to do this." I'm like, "Well, watch me not. You have to keep breathing to continue your life." Well, I'm going to start digging my own grave, and on your own head be it. It's all your fault now.
Wait, is that SI users who do that?
Strong SI users.
Strong, like ISTJs, ISFJs.
My mother's an ISTJ.
ESFJs,
she does it to me all the time.
They like, they're who will be like, "Oh yeah, come with us." And it's like, "We know you don't like it, but trust me, you're going to love this." It's like, "Yeah, I know what you said. Who cares about that? Come with me." And they'll drag you along, and then surprise, and you're like,
So,
and you knew.
Yeah,
I feel like I've been like that to people.
I've been like that, but I don't like when people do it to me.
When we do it, it's different.
Yep.
We actually can.
My ISTJ dad, he does that. I haven't had an ISFJ do that to me yet, so I think maybe with SITE it becomes even more likely. So TE is more like externally ordering. So
yes.
Yeah.
I feel like SI and extroverted, like ISFJs and ESFJs, will try and do something that they know you like, but also kind of don't like. So they'll get you a meaningful thing that they know you'll like, but they'll make you go through something you don't necessarily like before you get to the thing that you actually like. Like, so for example, if you hate surprise parties, but there's an amazing gift at the end of the surprise party, they're like, "We're forcing you to go through the surprise party that we know you hate, but also here's this amazing TV for you."
I don't know if I know any IRL SFJ, so I can't say I've experienced that. But I trust you. I trust you.
I love SFJs. I don't know.
I had a lot of SFJ friends in college.
Yeah, my mom's an ISFJ, and I would notice that she did. There were a few times, especially when I was younger, where she succeeded in pushing me into experiences that I really wanted no part of whatsoever, like sports. And then like later on, even though, I find, and of course, she's like working at FE and stuff, like, it'll like really help you with people. And,
oh no, you're so
like
lucky.
Meet people and make connections and stuff. Like when I was like 12 and extremely hormonal and, angsty, she tried to get me to sign up for dance classes. And there was no way. I knew exactly where she was coming from. I totally understood like the logic of it and all that and what she was saying, but there was no way. Mom, at this point in my life, there is no way you're getting me to dance with a bunch of girls I don't know. So
yeah,
you're lucky. ISFJ as well. And like, I didn't know what I was going to do after getting out of high school, and she recommended the military, and that's where I went. So
you guys are lucky.
And then you were like, this was a terrible error.
My mom's ESTJ, as I said, and she didn't care for it. She was like, I don't care if you like it or not. You're gonna do it. So like, there was no like, oh, like, I'll like the FE smoothing over, like, it'll be good for you, and then there's like something good at the end. No, like my mom did not care. She's like, you're gonna do it because I say so.
You're gonna learn discipline.
Yes. Oh my god. I really think that like that's why like I have very not only aversion a lot of times to like TE users. I'm very sensitive to TE DOMs, but also I myself have, I think, fairly developed SITE because I have STJ parents.
Yeah, all my parents are. My dad's the only censor, and he's an ISTP, which means if he sees something good, like in the president, he'll be like, "Oh, I also want that thing." But like, my mom's an INTJ, and not a very healthy INTJ at that, so she's often caught in her own world most of the time and pays very little attention to anything else that goes on around her, unless it is something she's interested in. So I never had that quote unquote discipline that comes from having SJ parents or siblings.
Lucky.
Yeah. So Christian, to piggyback off of your point about how like there's some trauma around TE. So Personality Hacker says there's two functions that traumatize people. It's TE and FE. Because they're both standards externally.
Right.
And why am I so attracted to TE users?
Because you didn't so hot. Because you didn't have the TE experience growing up.
I think
I'm like an ENTJ. Tell me more.
No.
I feel.
I can't.
No.
I understand.
Not even a little.
Thank you, Matt.
Not even a little.
Yeah. I know TE DOMs are often frustrated by people not wanting to do what they say. And I feel that they just sexed it up a little. They totally would. Now personally, like I'm attracted to TE women, for example. Like my wife's an ESTJ, for example. And maybe don't do this at work. But if you're like, I want you to do this now, you filthy, disgusting worm,
I feel so uncomfortable.
I want you to like fill out every one of these spreadsheets.
I feel like
just the way I like it.
I feel like there's spreadsheets.
So Paul, yeah.
There are some HR meetings in the future. Don't get me wrong.
Not at work, but
yeah. But and just maybe don't go to extremes necessarily. But it's just be all like, don't be blunt, but be like commanding. If you're holding a riding crop while you say it, all the better. But
I don't know.
This is my surprised face.
I feel like with the SI with ESTJs, it just would not. I don't know. They're just too like.
I guess it depends on the ESTJ. There's like levels of health of them too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed like with INFPs, I noticed some of them, like there's a slight trend towards them dating TJs. Like I noticed.
I don't understand that. But
FP, TJ.
Do you not see the poster behind me?
Christian, why don't you want
We
to
can
take your
see
mom?
it.
Let me hold up
If it
the
says
picture.
anything, we can read it.
That's what it is. I'm not for the Oedipal relationships. I can't date my mom. I just can't. I don't want somebody telling me what to do and have it. I was just talking about this with Joyce yesterday. Like TE is so like rigid and like it has to be done this way, and you cannot have any creativity, any other. And it's like they're breathing down your neck, making sure that you do. It is just you guys. Like that's why I'm in therapy.
I used to associate that with
This is an
SI
ENTJ. Like this is my fantasy right here.
ESI.
ENTJ with INFP. This right here is my fantasy.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm because I had so much STJ. I'm actually very attracted to ENFP women. Not like Kristen Bell. Like if anybody knows who she is.
See, this is what happens when you get a lot of INFPs together. One really likes G and the other really doesn't, and then they start fighting. They're like, "No, G sucks." No,
I've often wondered.
Christian,
Let's go back to cooking. Or
if you showed up at Kristen Bell's house in a sloth costume, I guarantee you.
Oh yes,
you have it in. Yeah, yeah. If you've seen that video where she talks about seeing a sloth on her birthday,
yes, and she's like literally crying. I just
with
like
joy.
Yes,
it's
like
beautiful.
I'm like, Like I will give it to you that there is a instant chemistry that happens between INFPs and ENFPs that's like almost instant because you're meeting your extroverted brethren. But once again, I did do a shipping video based on all of this, so yeah,
we'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I've often
you should put a link in the comments below.
I often have this wonder of what's my type, not in the MBTI of myself, but like the dating type, like who's your type of person you want to, and I feel like I really I constantly feel this need not to rule anybody out because I'll just surprise myself later that I really like. I have this. I like everybody. You know what I mean? I don't have any type I would rule out.
No, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. It's just you have more of a preference towards one. Like, see, my thing is I like strong, assertive, dominant, intelligent, witty women. It's just an instant attraction for me. And oftentimes that comes in the form of an ENTJ, INTJ, sometimes even an ISTJ. Not very often an ESTJ. I don't think I've run across an ESTJ I've been attracted to, but or even an ENTP. So, it's a very because I'm not that, I am then very attracted to that.
But my last two relationships, like Paul, I'm attracted. They were both ESTJs. Like I wasn't seeking them out, but for whatever reason, I got two ESTJs. One's my kid's mom. That was 8 years. So, but the thing is, I can only put up with it for 2 months, and then that's when I probably get out of it. But when I get in a relationship, I have a problem getting out of one. So that's part of why I stay in them. But I'm drawn to the strong women as well, but I can't put up with the bossiness very long.
Yeah.
But how bossy are ENTJs really? I know how bossy ESTJs are, but how bossy are ENTJs?
Oh no, with the TESE, it's it's a lot. Yeah, it's like hammer, because there's no SI to kind of hold things back a little bit. It's just I don't know, it's relentless.
Sounds exotic.
Yeah, in the same way as a tiger is exotic and will still eat you.
Yes,
in that good way.
I mean,
I feel like my only experience with ENTJs that elucidates something different from ESTJs is the lack of presence with you. I think sometimes that NI makes them more aloof, so that when you come to them to say, "Hey, you're bothering me," I've had good experiences with this one ENTJ, where when I came to her and I said, "Hey, what's the deal? You're all up in my business. I'm doing fine. Why are you coming at me you're so upset with my work?" her like FI immediately like came into play, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you," right? But it was, I feel like there was this like NI, like she had the goals, TE, she was communicating them to me, and like she wasn't aware. Like I feel like SI people have more of a read because there's like the physical presence that's there, and I feel like with NI over SE, it'll get the better of it, and they're like into the goals a little bit stronger.
Well, like one of the things I learned, or like when I was like researching all of this, was that depending on whether or not they're healthy or unhealthy, like I've heard that ENTJs enjoy motivating people, enjoy making people become better, enjoy making people become a better form of themselves, which if you haven't been like given that discipline and you want that discipline, that can be very attracted to you.
Right.
So I almost thrive on that. Like if it's not like degrading motivation, if it's like, you can do this, let's do this together, let me help you put you on this path that you want to go, let's go in, like if it's that kind of motivation, then I feel like it can be a very good relationship, because the ENTJ is helping you become maybe not as soft and a little bit more disciplined, whereas as an INFP, you're helping the ENTJ come into more softer feelings and care and all of that, like finding out who they are. But that is in the case of a healthy relationship, and maybe not so much in an unhealthy relationship.
I agree with everything everyone is saying. I will just say, like, hashtag not all ESTJs. So I think what happens is, like, all of the cool ESTJs, like, they get put into the ENTJ category because everyone speaks so badly about ESTJs that everyone thinks that a nice, good ESTJ is an ENTJ.
Yeah.
Where I will say, ESTJs can be super great as well. Like, I just feel bad that whenever someone starts talking about ESTJs, it starts to be a bash on them.
My brother is one, so I know.
Yeah,
plenty of good ESTJs.
My mom is not a healthy ESTJ, so like I just want to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
The
I
only
really enjoy
ESTJs I know could be mistaken for feelers. Like they're very like present with you in a way that I'm like, oh, like are they like they're very friendly, you know what I mean? And they have like the energy for you. It's great. I love it.
Like Monica from Friends, who I do believe is an ESTJ.
Yeah, or any ESTJ. She seems so friendly, like you could mistaken her for an FE
for
dom.
a feeler, or even like it depends. But like I like to see her as an ESTJ, but she's a very friendly ESTJ who will go out of her way, but she wants things to be a certain way, but she will go out of her way to help you get things done. Move, like she doesn't care so much maybe about social norms, but like of how things should be.
Right. And I see with my mom specifically, I think she goes into INFP grip a lot, so it's like a doubling down on the TE, but also there's like a very emotional aspect to it. So it's a lot to deal with sometimes.
Whenever we get into a topic about something that's a subject, and there's like two polar opposites of INFPs, it starts to get really heated very quickly.
That makes it fun.
Yeah, it has happened twice so far. So
good. You're doing well,
when
Joyce.
They get like really excited about the same subject that they hold opinions on, and then they'll like become very passionate about that. They're all saying very similar things, but they're all being very passionate about it.
Yes, me and Sam were that way last night in the group chat with the history stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, so cool.
And the theology, mythology, folklore. Yeah.
Speaking of theology, mythology, what are some interests and hobbies you all have had, and how have you circulated through them?
Go, Sam.
Okay, so since I've been volunteered and I do have a lot to say on this subject, I become consumed by whatever hobbies I pick up, like utterly, absolutely, entirely consumed. If it's for example, when I started playing Warframe, that was the only game I would play for the entire year. When I started when I started on MBTI, that thing consumed me and still consumes me to this day, where I'm like, there needs to be this thing, there needs to be this thing, there needs to be this thing, there needs to be this thing. And so that's why the webcomic was created. That's why I started all these other things. That's why I got excited about certain things. That's why I want to see more art of MBTI that isn't 16 personalities. It becomes a all-consuming facet of my life. It becomes almost part of me. And it, like, yeah, I can let it go after a while if it's like not as exciting anymore or whatever. But if it's like something that I jumped into or whatever, it becomes an obsession where it almost can hurt financially, especially so, for example, D&D, which I've started, like, I've run for a group of people for like 2 years now, but I've like bought so much dice, so many books, so many things without like care, like, oh yeah, I should probably be taking care of my finances. As soon as an INFP becomes obsessed with something, that care for finances goes bye-bye. Like, it disappears. Like mythology, theology, history, like buying those books. Like finances, who cares? I need these books. I need this information. I need these things.
Yeah, that's why the internet's so great, right? Everything's
Yes.
online. Like, otherwise there'll be bankruptcy, you know?
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
We have the internet and I'm bankrupt. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
So, like, I'm very much into like very geeky things. I'm into animations. I'm into like a lot of the stuff, and it consumes everything I do almost.
Yeah, I'm
what hobbies do.
I'm the same as Sam. It's a very FI-SI thing for me. Like, it's the FI, the passion, all-consuming thing, and then the SI just has to be, very, very detailed. I remember speaking to Dario Nardi, and he said that it's why INFPs make really good college professors, because of, as a college professor, you have to do a lot of research on very, very niche topics, and it has to be very detail oriented. And so, like, that is the level of it. Well, that's why I want to be a college professor, but also the level of attention that I give to all the hobbies I've ever had, all the things that I'm interested in, Pokemon cards, video games, Pogs. I rationalize to myself constantly. I so agree with the bankruptcy thing, spending money. Like, I rationalize to myself, I need this book. I have to have this thing. It
becomes a compulsion.
Yes, it's all, and I have ADHD, so it's even more like, just bad impulse control. So it is totally all encompassing, all consuming. I have to know every single little thing about my hobby.
How quick is your turnover though? Because I'm the same, and but I'll go from thing to thing to thing to thing. And yes, there are through lines, and there are things that I haven't given up, but I mean, I don't know, 6 months maybe. Depending on what it is.
It depends on how much it consumes you, how much it is able to hold on to your interest,
and how much it's costing me.
Yeah. So like I said, I have pretty strong SI, so I can get really bogged down in my hobby. So I probably don't move on to them quick. Or what'll happen is I have a number of hobbies going on simultaneously, and I'll just jump from one to the other for a very, very long time. But it's not going to be anything new outside of the ones, if I have 3 or 4 going on, I won't do anything beyond that. So, but it
depends on how costly it is, because for me, how costly it is that in college my major was cognitive science, because that was my biggest passion. And after those 4 years are over, I wouldn't read one single article on cognitive science at all. So think about how costly that one was.
Yeah.
And so I have an INFP friend. He calls it gear acquisition syndrome. So he loves instruments, and he'll buy musical instruments. And it's called gas.
Yeah.
I have an
might be relatable.
I have an INFP friend who does that. He'll buy things and then he'll hope that the sunk cost will anchor him into like really getting into the hobby.
That's not how any of this works.
Oh my god!
I don't do that.
Unless you're like investing, like part of the reason why I've like done Pokemon is not only because I enjoy it, but also because I know how insanely valuable some of those cards are.
Yes. Logic just bought a Charizard first edition for like 200,000 or something.
Made.
Anyways, sorry, Josh. Please
continue.
No, I mean that was most of my. I don't tend to do that. I don't have a lot of things that I've spent much money on. I'm very much like I feel like I always like have this notion that I ought to save my resources, and then I forget about them, and then they do get saved successfully. Like that's always the way I was with like candy as a kid. Was like I would have candy and I would think, wow, I should save this for later. And then I would forget about it. And then it would be saved. And my money, I would forget that I had money that I could spend as a kid from like allowances.
Yeah, I never had that problem, ever.
I don't feel like I ever
Can't relate.
spent a ton of money on my hobbies.
You're secret. You have a hidden ISTJ inside of you. That's what it is.
Josh, you have a lot of rotating hobbies.
I have a lot of rotating hobbies. Yeah. So since I was a kid, I've been into, everything from like Bible memorization because I was raised religious, to geography, to horticulture, botany. I studied linguistics and botany in college.
Linguistics, yes.
Yeah. Oh man. My longest hobby, because it's been able to change shape, has been cooking, because cooking can involve food history. Anybody like the TV show Good Eats? Introduced me to the term nutritional anthropology. That's good stuff.
That's so awesome.
Is a new one. Cheese. I work in a cheese shop. Cheese, I have to say, cheese is a hobby really waning out for me after 2.5 years. Like that's the limit. I don't have like singular hobbies like that last that long. So
I love cheese.
I feel like I get to 80% depth in a topic and then I'm capped out. Like I have this really bad habit with like any topic where I like consume voraciously, just like Sam was saying. Like it's like quote from my mom, ENFJ mom, I think. She said to me, "You've always been my most obsessive child."
yeah.
And but it's like 80%, and then I
burn out.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I think Spacey, the INTP, on many of Joyce's videos, put it well. Like the diminishing returns.
Yes.
Like NE is not interested in seeing things through the diminishing returns of the last 20%. And I feel like that with like books, I feel really ashamed, but I'll admit that like there are so many books that I've gotten like any extent of the way through the book, 20%. I've gotten like 20 pages into books. There's a book sitting just to my left. I really liked the first 7/8 of it. And then I like put it down one day and I haven't picked it back up. It's just like, it's a great book. I really like the book. I just haven't finished it. I don't know. Like, I don't know why I do that.
We're not great at finishing things. Somebody was talking about that. I think it was me and Heidi Prieb and somebody else talking about how we don't finish things like ever. We just don't do it.
It's interesting. Like with the finishing thing, I think it's more like, at least with myself, I know what I want the end to be. I know what I want the beginning to be. But like everything in the middle is hard. And that's why I never finish anything, because it's all that detail in the middle that ends up being difficult for me. Like, how do I make this book? Like, how do I okay, I know the ending of this book. I know the beginning of this book, but what do I put all this middle to make the ending I want happen? And that's what I often, like, even when I write my comic, the web comic, it's like, okay, but what do I put? Like, I know what I want the end of this chapter to be, and I know what I want the beginning, but what do I put in the middle? And that's where I struggle with finishing things, because
the good news there is that books aren't, or great books aren't written, they're rewritten. And so as long as you get something down on paper, you can work with it.
Right.
And you can, workshop it, figure out what doesn't work, and cut it all out, and then, eventually you get there.
Right. I think what that is, because I struggle with that too. It's the FI has the ideal, like the kind of the like perfect, conception of what it is, but then but oftentimes we don't, unless we actually like SI experience it, we don't know what it takes oftentimes to get to that that end ideal. So then
it's also the notion of closing the gap between your interest and your abilities.
Right. And so then when you actually kind of are like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you're like, oh, I kind of got myself into something deeper than I thought. And so then, then there's discouragement and like, oh, this wasn't as perfect as I imagined it to be. And, now it's all ruined and I feel I don't want to do this anymore. And then you just kind of abandon it.
Idealization and perfectionism.
Yes.
Going back to for example, the cooking. And because I also write poetry, if it ends up being bad or not perfect, I get very mad and offended and irritated and annoyed. Yep. And my sister will often be like, okay, go take a break, take a breather, come back to this, because I will be so utterly upset that my ideal and idea that I thought was perfect in my mind did not come into fruition. That I will become physically upset by this.
Yeah, wow. And that's why I quit things so easily.
That's what I like about bread. Bread forgives you.
Bread forgives, because you can always turn it into breadcrumbs.
Generally, bread works most of the time. There are things that you have. Again, there are things that have to be there, and there are things that have to go right. But generally, past a certain stage, you can't screw it up.
Yeah.
INFPs can sometimes be hard on themselves, which can cause them to not finish things. I have an INFP friend who really likes music. He'll send me a song that he wrote, and then he's like, oh, it's horrible. And I'm like, no, it's pretty okay. And then he's like, I'm not going to post it, Joyce. And I'm like, are you going to do that with all of this? You're just not going to post all of them?
Yep. That's why I don't tweet.
Oh, not me. I'm like, fuck it, send it.
Yeah.
Hey, great. It's great to have you all, by the way. I'm going to be headed out, but it's awesome to hear about all this.
So nice to meet you. I'll definitely
Thank you so much, Leon, for coming out.
Leon.
Oh, you couldn't do your FE thing.
She'll do it at the end.
Before I could FE him. Sean and Samuel, how do you both get over that FI perfectionism and create content?
For me, it's with me, it's making videos is a lot like writing for me. So it's I say that in a lot of my videos, but it does give you the ability to kind of perfect what we want to convey by editing and chopping stuff out. But when it comes to making a video for me, I go into this deep pit of when I start a video, I have to get it done as fast as I possibly can. And I will literally spend 3 days on a video. I don't really like to talk about how long I spend on videos, but I will literally sit 15 hours into a chair and not eat or do anything except go to the bathroom until that thing is done. Because if I actually don't do it really fast, my brain kind of catches up with it and it kind of finishes it for me. And then it never actually produces the whatever it is. So for me, I got to do things really, really fast and then just put them out. Because if I put it to the side and get back to it next week, I'll get bored of it because something inspired me. That next week, something came into my life. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that now. And then the thing last week is old and dull. And I'm just like, this is crap. So that's how I make my videos is super just, I don't do chores. I've been working on a video for the last 2 days and my kitchen right now looks like a horrible disaster. But literally I all my health goes to crap. Everything around me falls apart and I have to get it done or else I'm screwed. So
I'm a little bit different. With me, I had to watch a bunch of motivational videos. There's
Gary Vee.
Gary Vee's one of them. And then there's also this other guy who what's his name? He does these YouTube videos where he talks about starting YouTube channels and all of this.
Fake media?
And
Or
no. Give me a second. He is a. Give me a second. I'll just type it in here.
Yeah, I watch a ton of motivational stuff in my life. Yeah, that's all I. Yeah, help me like pull out of the trenches when I go really low. I need that motivational stuff to kind of help me because I don't really go for anyone else to help me out, so I got to kind of do it myself.
Roberto Blake.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I watch this stuff.
Yeah, and so I need to I had to watch those things, and I had to come into that realization that my idealization was misplaced. And because my idealization was misplaced, I needed to just go and do it and focus on it and improve on it, because I had to come into that acceptance that making mistakes was okay, and that the first videos that you do and the first things that you create aren't going to be good. And I had to wrestle with that acceptance before I started it. And so I did other YouTube channels and whatever that kind of helped ease me into it. But doing the videos and everything, it's I do it because I have to tell myself it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to do things in a certain way. It's okay to not be perfect. It's not okay. Basically, I had to tell myself it's okay over and over and over and over and over again until it stuck before I put it out. So now I'm able to create a video, and I will create a video within the span of however long that video is. And on that same day, I will boost it out because I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about the mistakes I've done. I want to get it done. I want to get it completed, and I want to move on so I don't dwell and beat myself up over any mistakes or things that I did, because I want to be creative, but I don't want to dwell on something that I'm going to hate myself for.
Yeah. So engage TE.
Yeah. So perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
And you got both Samuel and Sean mentioned motivational videos. And so I have this concept called surrogate self-efficacy. So you can gain courage or gain inspiration or gain the motivation to finish something off of watching someone else being motivated. You can get surrogate motivation from them. So that's also another method you can also use.
That's essentially what watching people like Roberto Blake, Gary Vee. Gary Vee has actually helped a lot because he's spoken to me in a way that a lot of other people didn't speak to me. And plus he's also extremely energetic. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to what's the worst that could happen if I try and do it his way? And then I'm like, huh. And then you get used to it, and then you're like, huh. And then you go and watch something else, and you're like, well, okay, let's try it that way. But because you're watching them motivate and being motivated, and then that affects you, which is why I always have issue when people are like, motivational videos are stupid. If you watch the right ones, they're very helpful.
Yeah, no. And I think I'm fairly certain Gary Vee is an ENFP, so I think that helps with the language thing.
Well, I still struggle because I don't know if it's ENFP or ESFP.
Yeah, definitely not ENFJ.
No, that is something I will I don't see ENFJ in him, even though some people do. But I do see him as a perceiver because he himself has stated he needs other people to schedule his days. He needs other people to make sure things are done. He needs other he will go and do things, and he will go and not stop, which is why I think more C versus NE, because NE is a little more reserved and laid back.
Right.
So I think it's more of an SAE thing that he's going like an Energizer bunny and is doing all the stuff. And that's just my personal theory behind it. And everybody around him makes sure he gets things done in the right order.
Right. And also he to me has no FE because he curses and all this other stuff, and he doesn't care. He just tells people to F off. So I don't think an high stack FE user would
if somebody tells him to not swear, he'll be like, no, I swear because swearing is who I am as a person. I don't care what you effing think.
Right,
this is who I am as a person. Like, and I feel like if a fee user is told, "Could you not swear so much?" They're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I will tone it back for you."
Right.
They may swear like somewhere else, but like in that setting where people don't want them to swear, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, I will do what you guys wish." Gary Vee gives 0 F's about it. Yeah.
One thing for me is I can cuss like a sailor, like in just in a dominated military alpha male kind of environment, but like I will never cuss unless I hear the person cuss first before me.
Right.
Just out of I've done it my whole life, so I don't know why I do that, but
I do similar thing. I don't want to like get shit for it.
Yeah.
I think you read the room and then kind of figure out like.
Yeah.
Like my thing is like I was brought up a very don't swear kind of surrounding and family and like Christian setting, like do not swear. And so part of that became part of my value system. So then I had to go and create more colorful cursing, like fudge monkeys or mother of pearl or fudge buckets. Like,
see, I started out music. My actual degree is in English, and I feel very strongly that like language can only hurt you if you let it.
Yeah.
And so like, look, if you have a legitimate problem with swearing and like my swearing in particular, and you say to me in a reasonable way for an adult, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Could you scale it back, tone it back, cut it out?" Fine. But I cut out a member of my family. I have too many aunts. My mother's Irish Catholic. There's too many of them. One of my aunts was saying, I had been to Ireland and we had a family reunion, and I was talking about a shirt. God, I can't even remember what it said now. But it quoted the word "fuck," and she got really offended, and like she wrote me a letter, like demanding an apology. But children in cages in the desert is fine.
Oh.
So I have one fewer aunt now, and I don't care. Like, like language can only hurt you if you let it.
Like it's more of a personal choice. Like I don't care if people swear around me because many people do swear around me. And I won't be like, "Oh, you shouldn't swear" or whatever. It's just out of my own personal preference.
Yeah.
I don't do it, like, because it's now become a part of me, and thus and so like what ends up happening though is because I don't swear and because I do I'm much like the teacher in Danny Phantom where he'll use those like Paradise Lost or Gulligan's Island, like those kinds of things, but like a little bit more creative and not necessarily related on books. The people will be like, he's not swearing like normal people. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to swear. Like it becomes a kind of domino effect. Like I'm not telling them you can't swear, but because of like my actions, they're like, well, let's tone it back ourselves. So it's not like I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do that. It's just like, I don't do this. And then other people are like, oh, well, to respect that person because we like him, we're not going to do it around him either, type of deal. But like it usually takes some time for that to happen, like a year before that happens. But I honestly
seems reasonable.
Like I'm not going to attack you for swearing. So that's
I also grew up no swearing at all.
Oh, I grew up that way, sure.
And I was not allowed to say shut up. I was not allowed to say stupid. It was like the word boring was definitely not preferred because you should choose a term that indicates that you haven't found what to do yet. You know what I mean? Like very much like, why don't you be positive all the time? And
sorry, I'm a 4.
Negative.
Yeah, same.
Like the negativity that causes.
The swearing thing came up in college, and I think deconverting from Christianity, or however you would put it,
Christianity
to atheistic, agnostic. No,
whatever.
No, I was raised Christian, and then I stopped being a Christian. So but
yes.
For me, it would I feel like the big thing now is that I have to get myself to swear, and I pretty much only swear by myself, and it's like I'm proud of myself when I say shit and fuck around people. I hesitate, and I don't want anybody else to have to walk on eggshells around me. So sometimes I do it only to fit in, and I'm really happy when people swear around me, because then I know that that's going well.
Interesting. Yeah.
So what do you do around people who naturally don't swear, or for example, somebody like me who doesn't care if you swear, but then does more weird swears or cusses that aren't swear
totally
words,
normal. That's doesn't even register. Alternative swears that are not technically profanity, how I grew up. So it doesn't even.
You're whatever.
It's just shoot, fudge, whatever. Sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, when I was raised, I was a very polite kid. A parrot, according to my ISFJ mom. Now, granted, this is from an ISFJ. My first words were "pardon me," but swearing was definitely quite taboo. I can even, and this is when I was an adult. I can recall one time where I heard my dad say "fuck," and I've heard him say "shit" maybe 3 times. And it wasn't a weird morality thing. It was just being well behaved kind of thing. And my mom still does this. The worst thing I've heard her say is shit, but she automatically corrects herself. She'll be like, shit, shivers. And where I'm from, I'm from New Zealand originally, and my parents are Kiwis as well.
Kiwi.
When we had Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, she would not let us say stuffing. Because in New Zealand, stuffing means something far more colorful.
Okay, I can imagine.
Exactly. So she would say seasoning, which makes no sense. What do you think salt and pepper are, Mom?
Why not breading or?
There's literally an alternate term that is dressing.
Yeah.
It's in the southern U.S.
I know it was so bizarre. But I enjoy I think one of the beautiful things about curse words is there's that little bit of shock value. But I hate you heard me say asshole earlier when I was talking about myself. And I enjoy it when it's used sparingly. It's just that little bit of spice in a conversation. Throw it out there once in a while. I could not stand I get this with guys a lot growing up, where every second word was fucking this, and this fucking guy was fucking this. It's oh dude, I'm so worn out. Impact. I'm not offended. I'm just bored.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah. But I always loved watching Inside the Actors Studio, where one of the questions James Lipton would ask these actors is what's your favorite curse word?
Yes.
And I love the stories behind all these varied actors of, what words they like. It's highly entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, it's speaking of the shock factor, it reminds me of the movie Gone with the Wind, where at the end he goes, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a," and everybody's
oh. I know.
The first swear you hear in the entire movie, and you are shocked by it. So I feel that's how swears should be personally, as a shock factor, not as a everyday conversation thing. Where it should be something that has an impact and not.
I feel the way naturally language progresses takes care of that entirely. I mean, that's glossing over it. But once a swear becomes not major, minor.
Oh, minor, excuse me.
Once the swear becomes commonplace enough not to have a shock factor, it's not really a swear anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the word damn. It's you know what I mean? Any of these words. So I don't feel I'm at all. Forgive me if I use the word precious. I feel I don't care if somebody uses a lot of swear words. I don't know. I think that I feel that way about dirty jokes. I feel when people are I think that's more obvious to me when people are specifically trying to fill everything with shock. It's like an inflation.
Right.
And I don't like that. Like using 20,000 exclamation points to say like, oh,
I
yes,
love this exclamation.
like something really mundane, right? So like, but like, I don't feel that way about swear words. I feel like I don't really care too much.
Yeah. Like for me, like the first half of my life, no swearing. Like parents were very strict and enforced that. As I started getting into high school, like my parents just kind of stopped caring and they started cussing around me. I started cussing. Like it just, and I grew up, I grew up religious, but I don't know. I feel like it's a very Catholic thing. I just know a lot of Catholic people who are just they swear, they drink, they just don't care. Like my family is just very much, all of my extended family were just very, very much that way. Colorful, yes, but also like my family hails from Spain, like so we're very passionate people. Very passionate people. So
like almost rivaling the Italians.
Almost, yes. But so I think that it's a cultural thing too as well. But you know, for me, the swearing is like there's just no word that just really encapsulates how you're actually feeling. Like for me personally, maybe you know, Sam, with you've found a very creative, wonderful way to like kind of use these other alternatives. But for me, it's just, especially with the F word, there's just something about because there's something about the plosiveness of the fa, and then the hard consonant of the ka. It just really is like just gets it.
The closest I'll come is like saying freaking.
Okay.
But I think there's also a line to be drawn between like if you know fuck is an expletive versus fuck as describing the act of fucking. There's a line for me. One of them's vulgar and the other is not.
Yes, agreed. And because also like I write and stuff like that. I'm very careful in, I guess, my language selection.
Right. Choose your words carefully. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like, and I agree with the whole like swearing every other word thing. It's just you sound incredibly unintelligent. Like there are other words in the dictionary. I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask. Can I ask people what's your relationship to crying?
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that question.
With me, as like, and if you paid any attention to my Twitter and like saying, like talking about this, it is a very intimate act. It is the act I do not like other people witnessing. If it is like, for example, even in a movie, if I'm watching a sad movie and whatever, I will try my hardest to not cry. Of course, I'll end up crying because, you know, it's a sad moment or it's a beautiful moment like that is just like very melancholic, but I will try my darndest to not cry until I get to a place where I can be alone or at least not care what other people think, because it is a very personal and intimate, and only the people I care about should be able to witness that level of vulnerability that hits you, because you don't want just everybody, which is why I always get annoyed with INFPs always cry. I'm like, no, if you see us cry, it's either one, because we're very comfortable with you, two, something happened that where we can't help ourselves, or three, we're not an INFP.
Who are those people for you?
Like who I'm like comfortable with. So because I don't really have any friends or whatever.
Are you comfortable with us, Sam?
Friends. What?
Are you comfortable with us?
Yeah, start crying.
This is a safe space, Samuel.
I could cry with you.
Let it out.
I would need to
Samuel,
get to know you guys.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
That made me cry. That was.
I would need to get to know you guys a lot more before I cried in front of you. But for me, it would be like my family, and even then, it would only be like select members of the family. I wouldn't want like all of them to witness me cry, or like whenever I do find a person to marry or whatever, it'll be with my wife. But it's always with somebody where I can feel comfortable around, to that level where I'm able to express emotional vulnerability.
That makes sense. Is anybody different from that?
Yeah, like I definitely never related to the INFP stereotype of being the crybaby, especially as a kid, because like I was already bad at sports, and I definitely did not need another reason to be a target. But like I was always very sensitive, but I'd always like try to find a spot like somewhere quiet. There was no one around where I could cry quietly to myself. I was never a sobber, but I am, and my wife teases me about this all the time, very gently, of course, but I am such a softie when it comes to movies and things. Like it can be movies I watched, like right now, you know, we're trying to kind of like watch a whole bunch of Christmas movies, like maybe one a day or one every other day, and like we're watching Home Alone, you know, and Old Man Marley still gets me, you know, like, you know, and other things like It's a Wonderful Life. Like it's still got, like I love that I can still cry, and sometimes this is going to sound so dirty in a second, but sometimes I'll catch myself, like I will feel it rising up, and it's almost like, and I'm not saying it's sexual, but it's almost like sexual tension where you can like feel it peaking, and you hold off just a little bit more because like the payoff with the tears, and sometimes I just want to feel it. And I don't mean I just want to feel something, but I just want that physical sensation.
It's cathartic.
Tears running down. Yeah, I love it. So I'll like hold myself before I like let the tears flow and let that go. And like my wife will cry too. Like, you know, TE DOMs, you know, do have emotions, but it's usually funny because we'll be watching something sad together, you know, so like a movie, and suddenly, you know, she'll just be like, "This is making me sad." Like she'll actually say it,
and you're like, "That's cute."
And meanwhile, I'm just like, you know, like we're watching the end, like it's the end of Terminator 2 and the thumb, you know, and it's like, he wasn't even human.
Like, curse our INFP ability to get emotionally attached to fictional characters.
It's quite ridiculous, but at the same time it's not, and that's why like I enjoy the act of crying.
I don't know if my experience is different, but I guess as a 4, and also, and this is something I've learned, people who have ADHD tend to have like intense emotional dysphoria. So I don't like I try not to cry in front of people unless I feel comfortable, but I do tend to cry a lot out of frustration sometimes, or whatever it is, or the movie, you know, song thing. Like this morning, I was, you know, Gravity by Sarah Bareilles came on, and it's very personal to me because of a personal relationship experience. And so, you know, I was driving, I was just sobbing the entire, you know, just sobbing on my drive because it hits a real pain point for me. So yeah, like I cry. I'm not like I said, like I don't care crying in front of my family or people I trust. I try, but like even that, like sometimes though I will temper. Like for example, we're also doing the Christmas movie thing, and although it's not a Christmas movie per se, it's set in during Christmas. It's called Stepmom, and we watched it 2 days ago, and like I didn't want to like just so I was crying, but I really wanted to like sob, but I was like holding it back because I just didn't want it to be a whole everybody focusing on me.
There's crying and then there's crying.
Yes, there's so I was like, yeah, you know,
there's crying and then there's weeping bitter tears.
Yes. So like, but I don't have problem like accessing that to as far as crying, and I don't have an issue. I don't have a thing against it. But yeah, like I would, if I'm gonna like really sob, like it needs to be away from people. But I don't mind crying like in front of people that I'm close to. Not sobbing though.
Yeah.
How about you, Sean?
Yeah. I swear I've probably like cried. Hey, no, it's Christian. No, but so like for me, I swear I've only cried out in like public like probably 10 times in my whole life, like honestly. But like I'm definitely like Paul and stuff. I've run to movies. I get that to where that's where I purge like
because I like to cry. I do enjoy to be in touch with stuff.
Totally.
So like for me, I like to do that. But that's where I get most of my stuff, either through a song, like Cristian said. You get the song, you have some connection with it, from some past experience, SI, things like that. But it's like, I use song, music, and movies to purge my emotions. And that's really how I need to do that. So if I'm with someone, but I won't like hold it. At my point, if I'm watching a movie with somebody, a lot of times I'll recommend a movie that I've already seen, that I already know how the emotions felt and how I felt when I watched it last time. Because I want to live that through them as well, but also get the purge of crying and everything that I felt like, a year ago. So like, I'll do that a lot. But like, it's just, I don't cry out in public. I'm not a crybaby like that. But if I'm like really stressed out, whoever brought that up, if I'm really, really stressed to the max and I'm just like put against the wall and I'm so frustrated, and just whatever it is, like then I can trip up and get really overwhelmed that way just for a moment, but I'll pull it right back pretty quick. But I lose control if it catches me off guard.
Yeah, no, that's a good point you made, Sean. Like I also do there are songs on my phone that I know will make me cry, and when I need a release, like this past weekend, I intentionally played Gravity today because I needed to have a release, So that's so funny that
You guys see that new movie, Pete's Dragon? I cried for like a half hour on that movie. Dude, I'm telling you, like watch that. I don't know why I cried forever on that one.
It's amazing.
Coco.
I'll watch it. And so I was thinking about Josh's point at some point. So we were talking about how INFPs, if it's not a personal topic, they'll more likely be vocal about it. But when it's actually something important, like Josh said, that sometimes you won't bring it up and you won't talk. And I realized that that's a trend with some of my INFP friends. Not all. I noticed there used to be this group I was a part of, and it was like an NF group. And I realized that when it seemed like the group was crossing the INFP's values, some of them would voice it, but sometimes they would just leave the group. And it would just be, I noticed this pattern with my INFP friends.
I'm wondering if that has to do with Enneagram type, because I feel like a 9 maybe would just remove themselves from the situation, whereas like a 4 would be a lot more vocal.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely run a cost benefit in my head and be like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, I've done that on Twitter, where I won't necessarily I don't think I've ever blocked anyone on Twitter, but I've certainly muted people just because, and it's usually because it's never a direct unfollow usually, but because usually I can tell they actually have interesting things to say, or they're like quite intelligent, but every now and then they'll say something like that really offends me. So I'm just going to mute you for a while and just go on with my life.
And then I'll forget that I've muted you. And it's
I'll check. It's like, what the hell happened to that person?
Yeah, like I know I'm very aware that I have caused multiple INFPs to unfollow me. So because I will be vocal about things I feel very personal a bit, and those will stir up fires, which will then stir up arguments, which will then stir up other things, which will then stir up, defending whatever, and then it gets into that whole Clash of Titans type of thing, and then the other person's like, I'm going to unfollow you, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I know that's happened.
I noticed with some INFPs, when you kind of clash with their values, they'll just kind of like cut you from their like following list, or Heidi Preeb calls it the repulsion switch.
The 5 repulsion switch, which doesn't just happen with people, but also happens with things. Like as soon as you lose interest, or as soon as you become repulsed by it, it's dead to you. Like it's gone. There's no emotion, there's no nothing. It's just boom, gone. And it's not even a door slam or anything. You've become repulsed by it, you've become disgusted by it.
Yeah.
And you're gone.
I that's all. What's interesting is there's an analog in the Enneagram. So the sexual dominant instinct is an attraction repulsion trait. So like, you know, things that they're very attracted to, like they merge with that thing, like we were talking about the other day. The things they don't like, they are extremely repulsed. Like one of my INFP 9 friends, she's a sexual dom. She said that one TV character, she was so disgusted with them, she couldn't even look at his face, like, because she was so repulsed by it. So I think there's also, I'm sure there's a, you know, sexual instinct Enneagram type thing in there as well, for some people, maybe more than others.
Because like some people it comes to like a lot more easily than it does others. Like every INFP at one point will feel, I feel like they'll get that phi repulsion switch where they will like become disgusted or not interested in that thing or repulsed by it, and then they will just leave it. But for some it happens more readily than others.
It's situational too. I've had situations where under normal circumstances the switch should be flipped and I should be repulsed, but I'm not because I let this person in. And I don't do that lightly. And once you're in, you're in. And so I'm still dealing with that. And it's wild because it's like, no. All of these things are against my phi values, but I screwed up. I screwed up. And here we are. So
what am I going to do about this?
It's complicated. We're going to go for a ride. I don't know.
Well, like I've had, so for example, when I was dealing with, I wasn't, because a lot of people who go through depression aren't clinically diagnosed with depression, but like when you've read enough symptoms and when you know those thoughts and when everybody tells you, if you're experiencing all of this, you likely have depression. So when I was going through like some severe hardcore depression and trying to learn, and I was just starting to come into MBTI and I was just starting to like learn about everything and I was just starting to like get out of it. And so I asked the friends I had at the time a question who I'd known since high school. And the one thing the person said is like, oh, here we go. This is going to be another one of those famous fights. And something clicked in my head. I'm like, okay, so this is something that happens so frequently that it is considered a famous fight. And I thought about that for a moment and I was gone. Like, no goodbye, no nothing, to get rid of the stress, to get rid of the depression, to get rid of the self-hatred, to become a better person. It just instantly gone. There was no door slam, there was no nothing. It was just disappear.
Yeah, we're like that.
And like these were friends I had known for like over 5 years, and I have not spoken to them in over 5 years now. Because of that phi repulsion switch. But it also brought me to a healthier place. Like, and sometimes it gets a little bit harder because, you know, INFPs, when we bring people in, we're very loyal to them. We're very attached to them. We're almost, I don't know about you guys, but like I'm almost possessive of them. Like, you are my friend. You are my circle now. And so like to like come to that point where you realize, okay, maybe all of this is a little more toxic, and then you come to that realization and then you leave it behind. That has been like, it's not easy to do, but like when that switch gets strong enough, you don't care anymore.
Yeah, so Samuel, he said some like keywords that I only hear FI users say, or like this is very strongly correlated with FI. He said the words "a part of me" when he was talking about his hobbies. He said "my person," you know, my thing. This is very, very strongly correlated with FI. Like I hear like my ISFP friends say this sentence. I hear INFP friends like is like. I've never heard another type before say it like that. So I'm just saying that's a visual, like, I mean, that's a verbal cue for FI that I've noticed.
Like if they say this is mine a lot, like this belongs
to
me.
Self-referencing.
Yeah. Like, well, that's why I say that a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very INFP song quintessential INFP song is Mine. Like, that's the song's title, Mine, by Phoebe Ryan. And basically she's talking about how all these issues, all those things, everything is hers. She'll figure it out eventually, but it's hers. It belongs to her. And I was like, if this isn't one of the most quintessential INFP songs out there, I don't know what is. Because, like, when we make friends, they're my friends. When we meet a person we love, this is the person I love. This person is mine. Like, it takes on almost this possessive type of trait. It's not like you're possessive over them. Like, it does take on a possessive trait. Like, especially I would get jealous when the friends would go to other friends' places that I didn't know, because, like, no, they're my friend. Yeah. And I would have to let it go, but, like, I'd also be really jealous because, like, but my friend.
But also very protective too. Yes. Not just, I mean, yes, jealousy. For the 4, envy. Although jealousy and envy aren't the same thing.
And very, like, protective and, like, everything, like, you do something to these friends of mine and I will end you.
I like to say that I don't have friends. I just have varying degrees of extended family.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in my circle, we're family.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I have to say, like, I think that's one of the things I love about being an INFP, but just also INFPs in general. Like, I love the our as Michael Pierce calls it, our introverted love for people. Like, the relationships we have are very deep and they're very special to us. And so I think it's one of the really cool things about, because I just don't see. Sometimes it can be hurtful because sometimes it's not reciprocated, but it
can be detached, like, because sometimes it's not dependent. Like, the other person's involved on our end, but they may not be involved on their end, so we have to be a little bit careful.
Exactly. But when there is that reciprocation, like there is, it's something I find quite unique with INFPs. Just the level of even more so than I would say ISFPs. There's a level of depth and just depth with the relationships.
Yeah.
Anyone's experience a little different than what we just described? Just to encapsulate all of it?
Yeah, I don't necessarily relate to a lot of the, like, what do you call it?
Attraction, repulsion.
The phi repulsion switch.
I have had. I kind of feel like I relate, but I can't think of any time where I did relate. I feel like my FI is like, oh yeah, but my SI is kind of like never. I have had a lot of.
You'd remember it's life altering.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of experience
behind friends you've known for over 5 years. Like,
I feel like my NE always jumps into their perspective. And it's like, what about that? I've had a lot of difficulty, like I've mentioned, having been religious and like coming out as gay. A lot of my family doesn't like that to this day. And that, like, there's a lot that's been very hard for me. And I feel like there's been like temptation to like try to cut people off. And there are people in my family I don't talk to, but it's not because I've cut them off forever. I still think about them all the time and I still have a lot of love for them. It's like a gradual shift and they become different to me, but there's no line that's crossed. There's nothing that's like dead. It's not dead. It's never dead for me. I feel like there's always room. Like, I could always forgive. I feel like
I feel like this is another distinction between 4 and 9, because like my 9 INFP friend, she also has like a very hard time like acknowledging her own feelings, because she's so like, oh well, I see the other perspective, I see the other side, and she actually strongly kind of funnily enough, she strongly disagrees with the whole repulsion thing, because because a lot of friends, even though they've hurt her, she still keeps them in her life for a very long time. It takes like a lot. And even then, like when she cuts people off, it's not quite full clean cut. So so because she says like I have a problem where I see so much other people's perspective that I almost kind of get lost in that and forget my own. So I think that's probably where there might be a difference.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that aspect of friendship where like there's definitely people I'm not as close to. Mind you, I've had my best friend, INTJ, I've known him since I was 13. We weren't best friends back then, but we became best friends in our 20s. And yeah, but by the same token, there's definitely people like I'm not close to, and it may be because of various aspects of, oh, okay, they feel this way about certain things, or they express this opinion. But I never really sensed any outright malice about them. And there's always that part of me that wants to hold space for other people. Like, you're not perfect, like I'm not perfect. We fall down, we fuck up, we make mistakes all the time. And that's just, what we do, but we keep going. And,
right.
And I'd never want to feel someone to, in some way, like you would have to like really like, you would have to try to force me to close you off or close myself off from you. And so I'd never want a person to feel like there's no hope. Like there's no hope of like reestablishing a connection with me, even though I may not necessarily make the first move or let you know, because, that's just how I am. Yeah, I don't know. It's that kind of optimism I feel.
Like with me, it's a series of events that have to happen. Like if I put in like a bunch of effort, and then if I call you out on like something you've done that is extremely hurtful or whatever, that like, okay, I've done all of this for you, and then you think, something whatever, and you call them out for their behavior and whatever, you say, hey, what you did here wasn't, and whatever. If the response is to laugh in your face and insult you or treat it like it's no big deal, that has become a cue of, are they really your friends?
Right.
And if they're like, kind of like, okay, you thought they were your friends, but like you've just called them out, you've told them what they've done has been hurtful, and they're mocking you for it and are laughing about what they've done. Ergo, that means I need to cut you out because I feel this is about to become toxic. And like in the previous thing where it was like, how many fights have we been through that has finally led up to this final moment where I have to make the decision for my mental health, whether or not I need to cut you off. And okay, if I want to grow healthier, I need to cut you off. I can't live by your expectations any longer. We've had too many fights. Ergo, I have to leave in order to grow better. So it's always a sequence of events that may last through years or may last even shorter, but it's always one, like, an INFP won't cut off a person almost immediately. It always has to be a buildup of things that have happened before they go, okay, no, this is the last straw. I'm gone.
Yeah, agreed. One comment, or I guess question, that I've been really wanting to ask all of you guys in the panel is like, how was it for you growing up as an INFP male? Because I feel like we have a very like kind of unique experience, more so than like, just because, I'm sure it's similar in Canadian culture, but in American culture, like the kind of social norm for men is very T or ESTP or
C.
Yeah, so very kind of chauvinistic and like Sean was saying, alpha male type of thing, and that's extremely hard for, at least for me. That I struggle with that immensely, and I resisted and I kind of rebelled against that as much as I could, because I just didn't fit into that. And I was not aggressive, I was not assertive, I was always very like a good kid, goody two shoes, very polite, and very, very sensitive, and I struggled a lot growing up. So I would be so curious to hear what your guys' experiences were growing up, especially a little bit kind of you, Sean, with the military thing.
Well, that's the thing. On my channel, I have 2 on being an INFP male videos. They're like 16 minutes long. I had to break them up in 2 sections.
Oh.
But it literally, the topic is just that. It literally talks about the stereotypical alpha male. It talks about my whole questioning myself as if I was gay, because I didn't fit in with the guys. You know what I mean? So you grow up, and INFP is heavily more like catering to like a female with a lot of our traits that we possess. But like when you when you're in U.S. Western society, especially where I'm at, in like an alpha male dominated military electromechanical kind of work, you really are the outcast a lot more than they are. And so like for me, like I said, I made 2 videos, and it literally, I just rant about exactly how all that, what you just brought up, it's heavily detailed.
Awesome. I'm going to watch those.
Same.
For me, I'm remembering your thing of like being an SPSO, being like a happy INFP. That was very much my childhood. I was that kid with massive rose tinted glasses. I saw beauty everywhere. I saw potential everywhere. I saw friends everywhere. I would try to make friends with as many people as I could, not like in an extroverted type of way, but like people who I found got interested in, I would try to make friends with. I was always hopeful. I was always joyful. I was always running around with other people, doing things, having fun. And like seeing things, even though I was like in bad situations, I wanted to be around. Like I saw the good in practically everything. I didn't see negative until when I was transitioning into junior high, when I was the first time I ever experienced betrayal. So happy kid, thinks nothing could go wrong. And then you experience the people who you think are your friends surround you and start like, there was this thing during the 90s where I don't know if you can do it now, but like you would be able to bring out these balls in these bins. So like footballs, basketballs, baseballs, to play with like on the field and everything during recess, lunch, whenever. And so these kids who I had thought at the time were my friends, decided to surround me and just like go into those bins and just start whipping those balls at me. Like I thought, my joyful thing was, oh, we're playing monkey in the middle, because the past history, monkey in the middle, nothing like this ever happened. But then I realized like, no, they were like essentially stoning me with non-stones. And I wasn't sad, but I was filled with utter rage, like blind rage, like seeing red levels of rage. Like, yes, I was crying, and I would only let one kid touch me as he brought me to the principal's office. And one of the kids came out who was part of the group that was doing that, came up, and I just socked him right in the stomach. Because once again, when you are blinded by that level of betrayal and rage, you're not thinking clearly as a kid. Like, they have betrayed your trust. They have betrayed your friendship. They have betrayed everything you're doing. So I was that happy kid. And then when I went into junior high, I was like, okay, well, maybe it won't be so bad. And then the verbal abuse began. Because, everybody becoming a teenager and seeing you as a bit of like a soft target. And they're like, okay, well, he's taller than everybody else, so we can't physically pick on him, but we can emotionally pick on him. So that also caused issues where the teachers put me in therapy because that's when I started developing a backbone. That's when I started developing sass. That's when I started developing sarcasm. That's when I started to kind of hold back on my emotions. And when I started to like strengthen myself, the teachers were like, yeah, you need to go into therapy for like defending myself. And I was like, what kind of... So like that was my experience. And then of course you go further into teenage years where you become like angsty and all that, but that's its own hormonal thing that like certain teenagers go through, and you look back and you're like, oh boy. Everybody goes through that, but like before then it was like going from happy to realizing that people aren't nice. And especially when you were that nice kid, when you wanted to like be there with other people, when you wanted to do fun things with other people, when you were willing to go and like when you were that joyful kid of everybody looking at you going, oh, how cute. And then all of a sudden getting this slew, because, I also wasn't that alpha male. I wasn't that leader of the group. I wasn't that person who was like, oh yeah, you're all this. So, and then I began to realize that I was more in tune with kind of feminine traits, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't like full on masculine traits, but there were like some like traits that you might see more from women or girls of the same age. And it's like, you're kind of like you take the masculine and the feminine and you kind of like put them together. And that was kind of how I was. Like it wasn't, yeah. So that was my experience growing up. And yeah.
Yeah, my experience, like, similar to Samuel in a way. Like, as a child, I was actually quite happy, as cheerful even at times. Like active, running around. I was very enthusiastic about my love for insects and dinosaurs and things, which came up in a different panel with Joyce. But definitely from about like 12 to say 15, 16 is like when I like got bullied. Whereas like I was like an outcast, and now granted it was never brutal. Like I never got my ass kicked or anything like that, except for like like punches on the shoulder and things like that. And I remember this specifically. Kelly Reynolds, who is such an asshole kid. Like he's nothing against ESTPs, but I'm pretty sure he was an ESTP. Like in 6th grade, he said, "Paul, why are you so fucking girlish?" And I didn't have an answer for that, and and it was so strange because then there were like, and for a long time it was like, anyone who's like good at sports, anyone who's like attractive, that it's like that, very stereotypical thing where you just assume that they're terrible people. And then I was always blown away by the nuances. Like, and sometimes kids are mean, sometimes they're not, and but it was definitely because of these traits. Because like even though I wasn't like a crybaby, I was definitely very sensitive, and like I was terrible at sports, for example. I had no interest in sports in the first place. And it's not that all INFPs, don't care about sports. I'm sure there are plenty, but but the part of me that always killed me is I feel if like being an INFP, if I had like artistic talent, then it would have been so much easier. Like if you're a musician. Oh yeah. Right? But and I don't like, I mean, I played percussion in like 8th and 9th grade band, that doesn't count. But
I feel like that should count.
Certain avenues you can get away with it.
That should count.
Like drama.
Yeah, he's always so sensitive. Or you're like, like a fantastic actor, and like there's no way in hell I was going on a stage, especially with all these like attractive and popular, confident kids. Like, even though like there's a part of me that thought, oh, it might be fun to be someone else for, an hour or so. And it did take me quite a long time to get over just that sense of like outrage. I was very guarded around people for a long time. And kind of similar to you, Samuel, like things got really good like in the last couple of years of high school because I started developing a sense of humor. Yeah. Like I'd be sarcastic. I'd find silly things today. I'd even like be class clownish from time to time. And I thought, oh wow, like people like respond to this. So, and that became just more of an avenue. Yeah. Long rambling story.
On the spectrum, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that I got bullied a couple of times growing up, a couple of times in high school, maybe in middle school. It's hard to remember, but like, I don't know. I was kind of in my own world doing my own thing. So like, I didn't really pay attention. But I think about like, even now about how I kind of come across, because on top of being an INFP, I'm a Cancer sun. And so I really don't feel like I hit any of the male stereotypes other than male pattern balding, which like I can grow a mustache, but why? I can't grow a goatee, so that's out. Like, I like to cook, I like to bake, like I'm good at both. I feel like a consummate caretaker, to be perfectly honest, to people I care about, not just to random people I would never make it in hospitality or anything. So there's definitely that weird kind of where do I fit. Even now, I would say it's like, I don't know that I'm into that really strong boss type woman. Like, I'm kind of in a, hey, I'm going to let you manipulate me, but like romance me first. might be dinner first. Like, okay, we'll play by your rules, but like
first,
there needs to be a dance. There needs to be a dance.
Yeah.
Like, it can't just be like, this, my way or the highway. Well, because the first thing, unless you're paying me, if you tell me you're going to do things this way, I'm not. And we're going to see which one of us rusts first, and it's not going to be me. Like, and on top of that, I have Irish heritage, man. The spite runs strong.
Oh my God.
Like,
Irish spite is strong.
So bring it. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
I think it's however you want to answer it.
I mean, yeah, I was bullied a couple of times, but like, I think people maybe got bored. Like, I wasn't, I wasn't repeatedly bullied or anything like that. I minded my own business. Like, but I was the quiet kid. Like, I was the quiet kid. I have a German last name, and most of my town was Italian, I think. Kind of hard to tell. It's a weird mix. So I kind of stuck out. Like, I've worn glasses since I was 4. Like, so there's that. But I think maybe people got bored. Like, and I didn't have a problem sticking up for myself. So like,
probably helped.
I mean, I picked a couple of fights.
Okay. That makes sense.
I don't know, but I still do feel, especially like in an SJ business world, like people kind of don't know what to make of me. A couple of jobs ago, I was in an environment where they wanted a cog in the wheel, and I don't know how to do that. No idea. So that didn't work out.
It's interesting. You said something about not really like fitting in like certain things, and I feel like for INFPs, we never know where we fit in. Like, we're always searching for that place where we'll feel like we actually fit in.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I don't feel like I have to fit in. Like, I do things because they feel good to me, as long as they're not hurting anybody else, right? So I've decided I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. Now, I'm 38. That wasn't always the case. I had to get to that place.
Right. Yeah.
For me, growing up as a guy, INFP, I feel like is a little different. I feel like I was not bullied. I was pretty sheltered. I was homeschooled. Everybody I knew was very nice to me. I've always been very well liked by most people. I mean, not like I've never had a sad day in my life. I had a very happy childhood. I did turn out gay, which was like, took me so much longer to realize than it ought. I feel like the more I think about it, I feel like I could have known when I was 14, but I didn't admit it until I was like 17. And then I didn't come out until I was 19. Definitely earlier than some. So yeah, that was, I think, the narrative that I clung to in terms of like femininity, being a guy, was, something to do with being gay, is kind of how I've thought about that until finding type, which I've really only gotten into type this year. So
fascinating.
So I think that's it on that subject. Although, Christian, did you say how you were as a kid?
I did a little bit, yeah. So like I was essentially, like, I was bullied, not a lot, or I should say not heavily. But I was bullied by both girls and boys. Girls actually were the first bullies I had, so I felt extremely emasculated. The taunt that I got a lot in 5th grade was Curly Sue by girls, so that was really hurtful because I have curly hair and I can't do anything about that, you know.
You
so
have curly hair?
I do. I just, you know, had it cut fairly recently, so it's not fully grown out.
Fair.
But yeah, and also the quality of my camera is not good, so you can't really see the curls. But yeah, I have, you know, so being made fun of for that, and just I always found it hard to connect with guys. Because I was nerdy, and also I was sensitive, and I liked reading, and, you know, I kept to myself, wasn't aggressive. A lot of times especially in elementary school, I would just be in the library during recess, and I would just read. That was my escape into a fantasy world where I didn't have to deal with some of the difficult, angsty things, I guess you could say. I mean, I absolutely experienced happiness in childhood, and I had, you know, wonderful friends, but those experiences were extremely painful, and so like, so I always struggled and resented the alpha male stereotype, and I resented the masculine culture that I felt was so imposed on guys, and I just wanted to be left alone. You know, I just wanted to be allowed to be who I wanted to be without judgment. And so I was so resentful of that's what it was. It was like a bitterness more than an anger, and towards certain guys or masculinity or whatever. So that was really that was difficult for me, and so I have kind of an initial repulsion against like ESTP now that I know ESTP types, certain TJ types. It's just you know, I had a very mixed group of friends of guys and girls. So that was kind of like my experience growing up. It was sort of difficult sometimes, but like I said, there were happy moments. But I know it's very foreign brooding, but yeah, for me it was just like I like just being resentful of the masculine, and now that I'm older, like I can see the damage that it has done to a lot of guys, you know. And I've even read there's a lot of there are books on it. There are studies that show that a lot of guys are more violent because our culture has only given guys a very limited outlet in expressing their emotions, and the only allowable emotions to be expressed are anger and aggression, and everything else has to be suppressed. And so anger and aggression comes out in physical violence because a lot of guys just don't know how to like cope with their emotions in a healthy way. And I felt very fortunate that I knew how to that I acknowledged them, and I knew how to kind of at least deal with them somewhat. But you know, that's why guys have much higher suicide rates, because they don't have, a lot of guys don't have very close friendships, as opposed to women. They tend to have a lot more close female friendships where they can like express their emotions to, and kind of like, so they don't have to bottle it in. So
they're always looked down on.
Right.
If they don't do certain things, or if they do certain things, they're attacked or looked down on for doing those things or not doing things, and they don't feel like they can go anywhere for help.
Right. So that's why I have kind of like, I don't like the whole the gendering of certain things. It just, and that's why I really kind of bought into the whole idea of like gender as construct. You know, yeah, it's very much pushed in. I learned a lot of that from English literature and stuff like that, and just language being construction for certain things. And so, yeah, so like, so now I'm like, you know, MBTI has really helped me kind of like just be more okay with who I am, and just being, you know, having certain masculine traits, but also certain feminine traits, and just being okay with that. Yeah, being okay with that, and being okay with me, and that's why like I love doing stuff like this, where I get to talk with other INFP males who you guys just all get it, and like just throughout this entire conversation, I've just been nodding my head because I'm just like, yes, like you guys get it, and you guys understand, and like and I wish that like like you guys were with me when I was growing up, you know, because I feel like I would have had, you know, a group of people that actually understood me, that I could, that would allow me to be me. So I'm glad that I've met you guys now, but yeah.
That's why I made an INFP targeted channel, because I couldn't find any of you guys. So like, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna find them.
Do it myself.
But that's what I did. So like,
legit why I made a Twitter account. Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. It's like you can't find us, we're hiding. So
right.
I'll put out a video and you guys come find me. So, I love relating. That's the whole thing. Same thing, Christian. I love my YouTube channel because in the comment section, it's super fun to me because it's like, yeah. And you don't get that when you're out in the real world. Like generally, we can, but generally everyone's looking at us weird. Like, what's wrong with you?
I met one INFP in the wild once, and it was a woman. But let me tell you, like, she was so like emotive and engaged. She was giving a presentation, and it was like you could feel it, and it was like the most amazing thing because you just felt it. It was like, she's one of us. Like,
You've never met another INFP,
INFPs in the wild.
I
closest.
One of my closest friends is an INFP, but we just became friends like 4 or 5 years ago. So, that there, it's very much our conversation and our hangout is very much like this right now. Like we will just be, you know, we'll be opening up, but we'll also like, you know, we love talking about like quantum mechanics and quantum theory and just like philosophy and all this other stuff, and it's just so, yeah, it's just great. You just get to like nerd out on those things and not be judged and just have so much fun. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this is just a random throwaway interjection, but Christian, when you're talking about like, you know, having this group when we were younger, I automatically pictured like a Muppet Babies version of this video channel where we're all like little kids.
Yes,
you know, I just think this is adorable. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Awesome. I'll just sit in there.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Wow.
Exert control on us.
and so, wow, that was like so touching. I cried, and I was like, wow. Like,
we're sorry.
No, it's great. Like, thank you for adding emotion into my life, because like it's so unfair. Like, it's like you're kind of born and you're just being you, and then people, you know, are attacking that, and then they're not understanding it, and so that I'm imagining all the host of mental health issues that like INFPs had to deal with, but they didn't have to have it. It's just that society was not accepting of like the more feminine traits that come with being an INFP, and so I'm imagining all the unnecessary damage and all of the trauma that happened that didn't have to happen, but it's just because people didn't spend more time listening, you know, to, you know, INFPs, Darian already says that they listen with their whole brain. And so like, but people don't listen back. So it's like, they don't adjust to that. And even like when, you know, Christian, you were talking about how men, they're not allowed to show emotion except for anger. And I'm like, dang, there's this emotional complexity of INFPs. You know, I hear a lot of people comparing it to the keys on a piano keyboard. You have all 88 keys, but then society says that you can only experience like a small range of them. Imagine how much mental turmoil and destruction that could cause like an INFP, like told to only experience part of their experience instead of all of it. And so now you're like cut off from a part of you.
Well, we see it all the time. Look at Cobain.
Yeah.
And like in order to like fight against some of the things I was dealing with in junior high, the worst advice I ever got and followed from my parents and family was shut off your emotions. You don't feel anything. Like just turn off your feelings. Don't feel what they're saying to you. And because that's how they're all thinkers. So what they did, they shut off that part of themselves and they logicked their way through school. And so they thought, well, okay, because they didn't understand that I was a feeler and that I was more sensitive, they're like, well, you too should be able to shut off your emotions and go through this, which then led into far more serious things down.
You too. Operators are standing by.
The low price of everything.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Everything you hold dear.
Yeah, and then I wondered, going back to the conversation, like how, INFPs and not finishing much and how they have perfectionism, those traits, like they're NE and they're also INFP, but they're also trauma-based traits too. So in a sense,
awesome.
Yeah, like when you have perfectionism, it's because you've been shamed before. So now you want to be perfect. So then the creation you create won't get shamed. So it's a reaction to shame, like to experience shame. That's where perfectionism comes from. And for the not finishing things, I feel like everyone has a certain way that works best for them when they to help them finish things. And so I feel like it's kind of like this. I see like NE naturally might not finish things, but there's always a way to like accommodate that and to create a plan. So then maybe it's possible to finish things. But I feel like people just go like, oh, that's just the way this person is. And then there's not really any support for that. But I think NE plus support equals like, you could maybe finish things with help, with
military training.
Yeah.
Discipline.
I had to do 9 years of military to be able to finish things.
Wow.
I mean, I can finish stuff at work, because I have to.
At home,
but
it's like have to.
Or like if it's stuff for me, or like I'm in a program right now for instructional design for e-learning, and I just finished 4 courses, and my practicum actually started today. Haven't looked at it yet. I'm kind of done. Like I feel like I wasn't where I was when I started compared to where I am now, and my career needs I think have changed a little bit. My assessment of the market has changed a little bit, and so where in March I thought I needed this in order to have a career, maybe that was wrong. And now it's like, oh, I have to finish this because I have to finish this because I paid money. I'm 4/5 of the way through. Like I'm this close. And part of me is like, but you don't. You really don't. I'm gonna. But I don't have to. And I feel like there's a part of me that would normally struggle with that. But like, do we really want to do this? Is this still aligned to who I want to be, who I am now? Like back in March, I had something to prove. And now it's like, no, I'm a little bit more whole. And I don't,
Yeah.
I talk with you on that, yeah.
Yeah. It's good that you know like what to finish and what to not finish, like if it aligns with you. Having that wisdom is totally great.
Part of it's wisdom and part of it's like sometimes it's like, oh, like if I don't feel something's in alignment, I can't finish it a lot of the time. So it is still a struggle and it's something that has to be worked on. Sometimes it's just hey, we got to suck this up.
Yeah. The reason why I'm crying is I'm thinking about all the opportunities of missed compassion, like where someone could have been compassionate with you. Like if men were more allowed to talk about their emotions and their struggles, I'm having struggles with motivation with this because it's not aligning with my values. Maybe that one person might have been able to convince you you just need to buckle up a little more. It's kind of like I'm mourning all the missed opportunities for you guys to have had love in the moment where you needed love, so you could have done what you needed to do. But I feel like I don't know. It makes me sad that like guys like
love is definitely a good song to go off of there.
But I think the good news is we can be that person for other people. It doesn't help us, but like a friend of mine was struggling with he recently said he was always having trouble with anxiety, and like it builds and builds and builds, and he doesn't feel like he has an outlet or whatever. And weirdly, as an Enneagram 4, I feel like I can talk about this stuff. I can hold space for the things that nobody wants to talk about, that nobody can deal with. I can hold space for that pain. But that's not something you advertise. That's not something you create a small business about. That's not something you don't have billboards. You don't have, that's something where like you see someone who's struggling that's close to you and say, hey, I've got you. What do you need? Yeah. And it's a very intimate, it's a very one-to-one experience. And unfortunately we can't market it, but like that's our kind of our superpower. That's the flip side of that coin. Yeah, it sucked.
But now we don't want to have other people experience.
Right, exactly. Right. What can we do? Right. What can we do so that somebody else coming down the line doesn't have to go through that?
Yeah, no, and kind of going off what both Matt, what you're saying, and Joyce, so I'm even extra like with the whole mental health thing because, a couple of years ago I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I didn't have that compassion. I didn't have, somebody being patient with me. I didn't have somebody who was understanding that like I have a hard time finishing projects because I just, my dopamine receptors just do not take in a lot of dopamine to motivate me to finish something. I have, a lot of intense emotional dysphoria. I have problems with hyper focusing and not paying attention to other things outside of me. So I seem very selfish. I have issues with just socially, because I'm very not aware of social norms, and I've gotten a lot of blowback from that. So it was like double for me, INFP and having ADHD. So it's just like, so when I was diagnosed, Joyce, you're talking about the mourning thing. Like I cried after my therapy session, like intensely, and I was sad for a couple of days because I was mourning the loss of all of those years that I was struggling and I didn't have help, that I didn't have somebody to support me and say, hey, it's okay, hold my hand, I'll take you, and I'll walk you through it, and I'll be patient with you. So there is a sense of that mourning, at least for me personally. So, but as Matt and Sam are saying, like now, because it's that FI thing where like, I know what it feels like. And so I don't want other people to feel that way. And that's why, like, as, if I'm blessed with getting a job as an educator, I want to make extra sure that if I spot any students struggling, that I want to personally, help them out in whatever way that I can, so that's the way that I can kind of turn that around and make a bad situation better.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Cristian, for, using your FI convictions for the better and trying to make people more aware of mental health. And thank you, all of you INFPs, for being so vulnerable and sharing about your experience growing up and being more feminine and how that was like. I'm sure it'll resonate for the INFPs watching, and they'll be like, wow, someone understands. And I'm not alone, so thank you for making INFPs feel not as alone, because that might potentially save a life even. So yeah, thank you for being vulnerable. You never know who it'll really impact and who it'll change. Mm-hmm. And yeah, thank you. And thank you, Sean, for having your YouTube channel. So I know your aim was to like make INFPs feel more understood and that their perspective was heard, and that like to have a space for community, like a community of like-minded INFPs, that they're not alone, that there are people like them, and that they can find people like them. That's such a wholehearted, wholesome reason to start a channel. It's like, I want to make people feel loved and heard. And the thing is, like, Sean doesn't put any advertisements on his channel. And the reason why is because he wants it to be a place for INFPs. It's like he just wants to keep it pure. And that's so cute. Like,
YouTube's forcing, they're putting ads on all our videos nowadays. Like, it's going to start next year. Joyce, do you hear that? Yeah, never mind. It's a thing. Yeah, YouTube's going to drop ads. We don't have any control.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I don't know if it already started. I don't know if it already started, but like it's coming like
no, it's coming next year, I hear. Okay. It's a new thing they're implementing. I think it's like either January or February, where you're no longer going to have control whether or not your channels have ads on them.
Wow.
Dang it. Well, I guess, I don't know how to feel about that.
I do.
That's, yeah, everyone's in it for profit. Dang it. And so, yeah, thank you, Paul M., for talking about, how your compassion even extends to spiders. It shows the extent of your compassion, that you can empathize for things that are so different than you. Mm-hmm. And that I really appreciate the weight of your morality. That was really sweet. And Samuel, like, thank you for sharing about your past and the how deep the bullying went. That was extremely, extremely vulnerable. And that's when I started to like tear up and cry, because I was like, dang. I was like, you have this INFP child who's very sensitive to the things that matter, and then you have this person like just whacking them around, like, and then how you can ruin a person who's just so attuned to the emotional realities and emotional moralities of the world, you really screw them up that way. And I'm like, wow. When you were that vulnerable, you allowed me to paint the picture of your life, and it allowed me to get to know you more, and it allowed me to understand just how much like INFP males have to go through sometimes when they're given an unlucky hand, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's not fair. It wasn't your fault. And it's kind of like you imagine all the jaded INFP males in life, because
it started like that or something like that.
Yeah. And it wasn't fair. It's kind of like it prematurely cut off your innocence. So I feel like there's like when I was crying, I felt like I was mourning the loss of the innocence that you all had to go through because of that bullying or that rejection of your true self that other people had, like with Josh, with being gay, and that probably started a whole a snowball. And I'm like, dang, if only society was a little more
even just the way the world is instead of the way we would like it to be is hard. I hardened really badly. They say George Carlin has a line that inside every cynic is a disappointed idealist.
Yep.
And that's us all over. And it's hard, and you have to kind of like break through, and like the snark is so easy. It comes to me like, if like look at my Twitter feed, like half of it is like, hey, why are we doing this garbage? And the other half of it is, okay, there's still hope here. There's still hope here. Like trying to remind myself. But you have to work at it. And to your point, Joyce, why are we doing this? Like, why? What's the point?
Yeah.
Who profits?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone needs to give CPR to the INFP's idealism. It's super sad alive again. Oh my. But yeah, thank you, Matt, for your just very cutting commentary. Like, it's very smart. Like, it's very, I noticed that when you speak, you put a lot of intellectual power into it. Like, I noticed FI DOMs don't get enough credit for how intellectual they are. Just take this whole chat, for example. This is extremely intellectual. And so I would just like to give credit to where credit is due. And so, like, thank you for that, the smart, witty edge you bring to things, Matt. Because I noticed that in you. There was a comment you made, Matt, about extended family and about how you don't have friends, you just have extended family. And I was like, wow, that gives me faith in humanity, that you can bring people who aren't just blood into your life as close family. That makes me believe that people can care about people. Because I'm like, wow, if you can care about people that deeply, like that you can take people in as your own, even if they weren't originally that way, it gives me hope that I can find people who are like that as well. So thank you for sharing that. That's sweet. And Josh, thank you for coming on. You offer this very youthful energy that I really like.
Yeah. And so refreshing.
Precious.
Yeah. So Josh is actually extremely smart. So he makes these comments like, there's this French word. Can you remind me of what it is?
Oh, the phrase "le mot juste."
Le mot juste. Josh told me that was like the embodiment of the SI-NE axis, and about how SI likes the just right word to describe something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that is brilliant, Josh.
Yeah.
There's another instance that I really liked. Something you mentioned. I like a lot of things you mentioned, but it's like you compared something to ROM and RAM, and could you go, if you still remember? Can you?
Yeah. Like introverted functions versus extroverted functions. Or like the difference between the types of computer memory, where there are two types of computer memory: some that stay when you depower the circuit board, and some that are erased automatically when you depower the circuit board. And so it's like an extroverted function and everything is there and it's all flowing. And then when the interaction stops, all the data in that function is kind of like wiped. Whereas an introverted function just kind of holds it all, and it can change, but it has to be specifically edited.
Yeah. It's hard drive versus RAM.
Yeah, that is so freaking smart, Josh.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you for just broadening my conceptual horizons with your just ability to connect things so rapidly and so intelligently. Like, you bring something to my life. Yeah, and I'm better off for it. And so thank you, INFPs, for just your emotional richness, for your ability to stand up for when things aren't moral, to know when there's moral injustice quicker than anyone else. Your ability, your compass for the things that are just and unjust, good or bad, really help make society a better, more moral place. And it might jade you, like just your ability to notice when things are good and bad, because you guys are idealists, right? But I'm grateful for the ideals that you all hold, because they're ideals of a better society, and society would not be better without those type of ideals. So thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
Uh,
See everyone. So nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Likewise,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. That was been an
We
absolute
will
pleasure.
make you feel things.
Maybe not so much Christian, but everyone else.
Well, I've chatted with Christian in Joyce's comments, so it's great to meet him too.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. And I'm sorry, Leon, that you had to drop off early. Yeah, so it was a pleasure. And also, Paul, too, I'm so sorry that your internet connection died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode.
Yep.
Bye,
Later.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.